This is Mickey Quinn, the official announcer of today's Two Mics podcast.
We are the Two Mics. He's Mike Parry, I'm Mike Graham. We are here for the next 3 hours. We've got an awful lot to discuss, not just the England game, of course. The amazing boxing match that's coming up the night after. Carl Froch and George Groves will be talking about that as well.
Yes.
But food is going to be what we're talking about first, because you're a bit worried about the obesity problem. I read a statistic today that said that a third of the world is actually now obese. So it's not just a problem in Britain, in Europe, it's everywhere.
Sorry, are you going to introduce me to the show now and say hello?
Well, how many times have I said you're Mike Parry?
No, you haven't. You haven't said it at all. When I tried to pull you up on that just now, you said that was the opener. So the opener's now finished. Yeah. Now you're supposed to say, welcome.
I said, I'm Mike Parry, he's Mike Parry. Yeah. That was the first thing I said.
Hang on. Normally I get a rather more official introduction.
I made the mistake of letting you talk to me, and you started babbling on about England, and so then I kind of lost my train of thought. All right, let's start again.
I need a bit more respect from you.
Mike, a very good morning to you. I'm very delighted that you're here. Mr. Parry will now address the audience.
Thank you very much indeed, Mike. It's great to be here again. Great to be in this studio, top of TalkSport Towers. And the next 3 hours, I'm going to enlighten the world on things that need enlightening.
Good.
On.
Is that it? That was well worth waiting for.
Yeah,
now,
exactly,
listen, now you've had an awful lot. There's been an incredible amount of Twitter traffic over the last few days. Incredible amount of stuff which people have been posting. Pictures of you looking like John Travolta.
I know, it's
pictures
insulting,
of John
isn't it?
Travolta next to you. Pictures of you with
I need more respect.
Olivia Newton-John. A guy posted tonight a picture of some Fifey's bananas, because every show that we do, somehow you make a mention of the Fifey's banana boat that comes up into Portsmouth Harbour.
It passes my window, doesn't it? And it's full of containers full of bananas.
There are still people posting pictures of what they think is signs for the M63, which I think, frankly, have been photoshopped, because, as we know, doesn't
I actually
exist.
drove on the M63 years ago.
No,
it's
we
now
know
the
that.
M60.
No, I know, but it's not there now. Humber Bridge, I mean, legendary stuff.
Well,
Mr. Parry.
let's move on, because we've got to get on to the obesity problem, Mike, and you're absolutely right. Now, the world has gone mad about obesity, OK? I'll read you some headlines from this week. This is the most ridiculous one from The Times.
Yeah.
It says, British girls become the fattest in Europe. And some of this says, with 29.2% of British girls under the age of 19 obese or overweight, Britain has the 27th worst record in the world. This is utter rubbish. To say that 1/3 of the girls in this country is obese is utter rubbish.
Are you saying it's not true? You're saying that
of
they're
course
not
it's
obese.
not true. Here's another one. Weight Watchers free on the NHS. The overweight should be prescribed Weight Watchers on the NHS, according to the Health Watchdog. GPs will be told to offer the 12-week slimming courses, which cost £100. Utter and absolute garbage. What's happening
So
here
you're saying
Mike,
they shouldn't do that?
I'm saying it's ludicrous because people aren't that overweight. Here's another one. Once-a-day diet jabs lets a woman drop 2 dress sizes. A dieting jab that can help women drop 2 dress sizes could be available within a year. And how about this one here?
From the NHS, that as well?
Yeah, from the NHS,
right.
That is, yeah. And one here, which is so ludicrous, it's unbelievable. Chocks away. Cut 2 bickies a day to slim. Brit girls fattest in Europe. Ditching just 2 chocolate biscuits a day would end Britain's obesity epidemic, experts claim.
Well, how many chocolate biscuits do people eat?
Well, I don't know. I don't eat any chocolate biscuits. The only way to lose weight is to drink and eat less than you are doing at the moment if you think you're overweight, and then you'll lose weight. I mean, this honestly...
But also, you have to do exercise as well, though. You don't just lose weight by not eating.
Well, this is another thing which really gets my goat, right? About every 3 months, a national newspaper picks on a celebrity, puts them on a diet, and then you get the ludicrous pictures of this person, usually a woman, in, like, spandex. What's it called?
Spandex.
Spandex, that's right. On the floor, doing floor exercises, push-ups, stretches. Right. They're all the same.
Then they do a video for Christmas.
Yeah, they do a video for Christmas. They're doing all the same exercises, right. and every 3 months it's just a different celebrity, so-called celebrity.
Yeah, because women are obsessed with dieting, that's the thing.
Well, men are obsessed with dieting as well, but women...
I'm not obsessed with dieting.
Well, that's obvious. But women more particularly, you're absolutely right. And the latest one was Kerry Katona.
No, yeah.
Now...
That was actually quite a sickening spread of pictures, wasn't it?
It was dreadful. To start off with, she was grossly overweight, and I can say that without fear or what's the word? Favour, because she looked gross, and she was designed to look gross, because the whole idea was the pictures over the next days would show her losing weight and getting slimmer. But, I mean... I just don't get the Kerry Katona fascination.
No.
Here's a woman who regularly goes bankrupt, who has, problems with relationships, who is often reported to be having difficulty bringing her children up and all this kind of stuff. I just don't get it. And then she suddenly appears on the floor doing the press-ups. It's utterly
Well, I
ridiculous.
guess it must. I mean, the reason why they keep doing it, I suppose, and these videos still sell and women keep buying them is because they're always looking for some kind of inspiration.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Every woman I've ever known has always been on some kind of diet at some point or other.
It is the biggest contract of the modern world. The old diet thing, lose weight, and billions of pounds are being made by people somewhere who are very cleverly taking money off gullible people who think you lose weight by going on diets. You don't.
But are you seriously telling me you don't think people are getting bigger in this country? Because I'll tell you where I
Yeah,
noticed it.
they are.
Well, they are.
Without doubt.
You just said it was all rubbish, though.
No, because as society gets more prosperous, people are bound to get bigger. They've been getting bigger since the 17th century. Why do you think I, keep
that's
promoting
called evolution, isn't it?
Evolution or just better health or whatever. Of course, people are bigger. I mean, crikey, have you been on HMS Victory in Portsmouth Harbour? There's a doorway there which is 4 feet high.
Yeah.
Now we're about half the size again, bigger than that
Well,
now.
you're not.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
That would be ideal for you.
And the other thing about these Weight Watchers and all these ridiculous videos, I said Kerry Katona was in one. The one before that was the girl who came off a reality show. What was her name?
I don't know.
Yeah, she married some guy called Preston. What was her name?
I don't think I know the one
you
you
know
mean,
I'm talking
Chantel?
about. Something like that, yeah. And she again appears in all this lycra and spandex and whatever.
Well, why do you spend so much time reading all this rubbish?
Well, but I don't. I see them I see them on the front pages of newspapers. I try to read every paper every day, and all I see are these grossly fat women who, to me, look as though they.
Chantel was never fat, was she?
Well, she is in this. If it is Chantel,
Oh,
apologies if it's not you, Chantel, and it's somebody else. But it's a name like Chantel, so maybe it isn't Chantel. If it isn't, I'm sorry, Chantel. But certainly a lady has done one of these videos with a name like Chantel,
right?
And the whole idea is to be running around in a park looking grossly overweight.
But you just said to me that I mean, as we agree that women are obsessed with dieting, but you said so are men. I mean, that means you must have. Have you ever been on a diet? I mean,
of course not.
I've never been on a diet.
Of course not. I lead a healthy lifestyle.
But didn't you have to go on a diet when you became ill?
Well, of course I did, because
they must have prescribed you certain foods that you couldn't eat.
I couldn't eat anything, hardly. It was liquids and that kind of stuff. But yeah, but
I don't mean when you were in hospital. I mean when you came out.
Oh yeah. No, it was mostly liquids and that kind of stuff, Or
well, you still stick to that one rigorously, don't you?
Yeah.
Liquids.
Well, funny you should say that, and I know what you're laughing at here because there's another story around which how about this? Getting drunk at the pub has gone out of fashion. Britain is losing its taste for booze, according to a government report that shows steady falls in the number of drinkers and the amount of alcohol consumed each week.
I don't believe that for a second.
Well,
are they having a laugh?
I don't know. It goes on to say the country is spending slightly more on alcohol for drinking at home than it did at the start of the recession.
So people are getting drunk at home then.
As prices outstrip inflation, but the sum spent on drinking in bars, pubs and restaurants dropped by a tenth in real terms from 2009.
We're always hearing stories about, the centre of Newcastle, the centre of Liverpool, the centre of London. People are out drinking
awash with drunken women.
Yeah.
Awash with drunken women who are then putting on weight. Now, listen, mate, we've got a bit to go in this show, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do during the course of this show. I'm going to put forward some very cogent suggestions.
Have you got like a 5-point plan?
Well, almost. For instance,
have a 5-point plan.
For instance, and this is not a new one because I've said this before, people should be weighed before they go on aeroplanes and they should be charged compared to how heavy they are because they use more fuel.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on that. I've often advocated the idea that you should have a sort of collective weight, so it's you and your luggage. So, I mean, if the thinner you are, the more luggage you can take. And everybody gets the same weight.
Yeah, but what about this, Mike? What about the dangers of this? If we all keep getting fatter and bigger, which apparently we are, doesn't that mean to say that places like theatres, football stadiums and that are in danger of collapsing eventually because they were built to...
they won't.
They were built to sustain and maintain a certain weight of human being. And if the human being suddenly becomes, the mass of human beings becomes 30% larger, then surely you're looking at a situation which is incredibly dangerous to many structures in this country. When will the first lift in a lift shaft suddenly... the cables will snap and it'll plunge to the ground because the fat people inside outside
Rubbish.
are weighing 50% more than they did 25 years
Well, no,
ago,
'cause all they'll
and
do-
the lift will plunge to the
No,
ground.
All they'll do is they'll change the sign inside where it says good for 10 people. Instead, it will say good for 5
Whoever
people.
looks at that?
I
Whoever looks
always
at
look
that?
at it. I
know.
always look at it.
I nobody ever looks at it. You just cram as many people as you
no,
can.
I always look at a lift. If
Cram as many people as
I'm
you
about
can.
to get into a lift and it looks like there's 10 people in there and it says, suitable for no more than 10 people, I don't get in it.
Right, one of these days, right, you'll find a tube train on the London Tube, the driver will put his foot on the brake and nothing will happen because the weight of the people behind him in the train has got so... No,
That is absolute
no, it's
rubbish.
not. It's got so extensive
All right, well,
that
why
the
doesn't
brakes,
it happen?
the brakes aren't good
Well,
enough to
why
stop
doesn't
it.
it happen on cruise ships? Because cruise ships are now full of more people. They're big.
Yeah.
Have you seen the size of cruise ships now? I mean, they're literally
incredible.
like floating hotels, right?
Incredible.
Massive.
Incredible.
Why are they not sinking if the people are heavier?
Well, because that's you see, I'm a bit of a student of naval architecture,
Are you?
and that is because the ships have been redesigned over the years to accommodate the heavy human being. In fact, that's one area.
Well, yeah, but the boat's already heavier anyway.
No, that's one area of life where they are actually reacting to the gross massness of the human race.
Are they?
Yeah.
I'll take your word for that. He's an expert on many things. He is Mike Parry. I'm Mike Graham. We are the two Mikes together. We're going to fight the Flab. It's all coming next on Talk Sport. This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. Mike Parry is sitting right next to me. We are the two Mikes. I have to say there's some traffic coming in on the various social media networks saying that why is Mike Parry talking about this? He's overweight.
No, I'm not.
What's it got to do with him?
No, I'm not. And listen, by the way, this is such a contrick on the whole of the British people, the whole of the world, actually, about, this overweight business and all that I think we should face it on and take it seriously. So, for instance, if doctors are saying that, obesity kills X thousands of people a year and costs the National Health Service X billions of pounds because people get diabetes.
I'm always very suspicious of those figures,
I'm
actually.
very suspicious. So, you know what we do? We take it seriously. So, when a bloke of, say, the size of a couple of our colleagues here at TalkSport walks into a bar and orders a drink, barman says, "I'm sorry, I can't serve you." Now, at the moment, a barman can refuse to serve an individual drink if he thinks he's intoxicated and he's had too much.
Or for any other reason, I suppose.
Well, he can ask him to leave for any other reason, but refusing to serve him principally because the man's intoxicated, OK? Saw that, actually, in an episode of Coronation Street
Has that ever
recently.
happened to you?
No, it's never happened to me.
I went out with a girl once, right, who used to get drunk that much.
Yeah.
That she used to be refused. So
You're
we'd have,
joking.
and we'd have to
How
leave.
embarrassing
So it
is
was
that?
terrible. Yeah,
You're
it's awful.
joking.
I'm not joking.
What, so you were all right, but she was out of her face?
I'd be fine, and they'd say, terribly sorry, we can't give you
Can't serve your friend.
Actually,
Actually, funny enough, it happened to me once in Cornwall when I was... my sisters and I had all reached sort of the age of 50 and all that. I took them away to Cornwall, right? Yeah. And we were in this restaurant, and completely out of the blue, this woman said, "I'm sorry, I can't serve..."
Was it the Smuggler's Inn, was it?
No, it wasn't Smuggler's Inn. No, that's... No, that's...
Oh, is that Devon?
No, you're thinking Jamaica Inn.
Oh, the Jamaica Inn, yeah.
Yeah, Jamaica Inn is in Bodmin Moor. That's in Cornwall, but it wasn't that, no. So... And completely out of the blue, we hadn't, we'd had a couple of drinks on the way to the restaurant. She said, "I'm sorry, sir, I can't serve you. You're intoxicated."
Really?
And I was so shocked. I thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
I thought, so I was so stunned. Instead of protesting,
And
I
you'd
said,
gone there for a meal?
Yeah, I'd gone there for a meal, yeah. It's quite late. It's
Shocking.
about 10 o'clock because, we'd been out and whatever and decided, been out all day and then we'd come back to the
So you've been
hotel.
drinking
and
all
got
day,
changed.
though?
No, I hadn't been drinking all day. No, seriously. And, we'd been to see Tintagel Castle or something like that. And I was so shocked. Instead of, stamping in my feet and all that, I said, "Look, thanks very much for the advice. I really appreciate it. Thank you."
Right.
And we left and went somewhere else and got served perfectly normally. But anyway, look.
Bizarre.
What I'm saying is this. So we take it seriously. These are some of the measures we've got to undertake, right? First of all, I've told you about the aeroplanes. Now, secondly, people should carry around what would be called the weight card, okay?
Right.
And this weight card should have to be slipped into things like seats when you sit down. And
So it's like it's got a chip in it of some kind, does it?
it's got a chip in it, right? So you know how you put your bank card into a hole-in-the-wall thing?
Yeah.
This would be seats where you had to put the card in, and as you sat down on it, the seat would speak to you, and the seat would say, "You are too heavy for this seat, you must get off," right? No, I'm serious.
Well, nobody's going to go for that, though, are they?
Why not? Because that would publicly embarrass a person. If
But where would these chairs be? You mean in restaurants? You mean in, public places? Like
it would become part of society.
You see, the problem is, you come from
we're all supposed to be dying of obesity and 1/3 of people in this country are obese, then there's no reason why we can't have a wholesale attack on obesity.
But I thought you were one of these people who preferred, less government in your life. You're a bit of a sort of, not necessarily a libertarian, but
I do.
But you're on the right side of the political spectrum.
I
Surely
do.
You don't want a nanny state.
No,
what
I don't.
What you're proposing is to make more of a nanny state than what we have.
No, what I'm proposing is that if we seriously believe what the government are telling us, that 1/3 of us are obese or half of us are going to die of diabetes.
Well, I don't believe that for a start.
No,
anyway.
I don't believe it. Then you've got to take it. The other thing you'd have to do is in every restaurant in this country, you would have to have a platform inside the door, much like a doormat, but it would be a platform. And if your body mass weight was over what doctors told you it was, you
like
would
a way station.
A way station inside the front door of every restaurant, you would be refused service in that restaurant and told that you can't have it. Same if you went into a fast food store. You'd have to produce your card at the counter and say, right, I want a quarter pounder with chips.
This would be a terrible place to live, this country.
Hang on, a quarter pounder with large fries and 6 chicken nuggets and an ice cream, whirly ice cream, please. You'd have to produce your card, and then it would go into the computer till. And if that computer till worked out that your mass body weight was so gross, you'd have to be refused the food. They'd have to turn you down.
You could take it a step further, and if you had one of these cards, presumably it could register every time you had something to eat at whatever place, and they might get to, say, 7 o'clock at night and go, terribly sorry, you've already had 3 hamburgers today.
That's
you
right.
Can't have another
you
one.
Can't have any more
you
food.
can have a glass of water.
You can't have any more food.
No, that's like be living in North Korea or something.
Well, yes, but what I'm saying is if the government are trying to brainwash us into believing that we're all overweight, we're all going to die and all that, then they should take it seriously and introduce extreme measures to make people aware of their obesity.
I think if they did that, I would emigrate. I would never want to be living in a place where they had that.
It's going to happen all around the world, Mike. It's going to happen all around the world. You'll never get away from it.
But in that case, you must then believe that some of these fast food companies and other, not just fast food companies, but other food manufacturers have got a lot of questions to answer about the size of the food that they now produce, the things that you can now buy. The buy one get one free thing that you do in. Loads of people now buy twice as much food as they need because it's free. Loads of people get they go large when they go to a fast food place because they can. Why don't you just get rid of all that?
Listen to this here. This is another latest report.
You've not listened to a word of that.
I have, yeah.
Well, why don't you take some notice of it?
Because I've taken notice of it and I'm adding to it. 2/3 of UK adults and a quarter of children are overweight, according to latest figures. Cutting daily intake by the equivalent of a pint of beer or a bag of plain crisps would slim Brits down to 1984 sizes. You can't hold that back. That's the problem. New figures in medical journal The Lancet show the number of fat people worldwide, get this, Mike, has risen from 857 million, which is quite a lot,
It is a lot.
to 2.1 billion. 2.1 billion people in the world are obese.
And I presume that they're not necessarily people that are being born into countries where they've got a massive population explosion like China or India.
Exactly.
But that's the thing. In the end, if all you have to do is take one less packet of crisps into your face every single day, well, how many packs of crisps are these people eating?
I don't know. But, I tell you what, if the government are right, what's going to happen are things like, buses will go slower because there's too many fat people on them. So you'll have to stop fat people getting on buses, use up too much fuel and all that kind of stuff. You will find a situation.
Well, they'll all be on mobility scooters by then, won't they?
Well, they will all be on mobility scooters, yeah. And by the way, we did the store of mobility scooters. I happened to walk into the pub where I'd cited the bloke who was a mobility pub bore who's parked at the top, and he's listened to the podcast. He's not happy with me. He's chasing me around Surrey on his mobility scooter.
Well, hopefully with your agile abilities, you can get away from it, can't you?
But what's going to happen is, Mike, one of these days, if these figures are true, a load of kids in a disco somewhere on the first or second floor, the floor's going to cave in. It's obvious that's going to happen if these figures are true, because the building was built to sustain a certain amount of weight, most of which is human beings, and that weight has gone up by 100% maybe in 10 or 15 years.
That's never going to happen.
Mike, it will happen.
That's never going to happen.
It's bound to happen. If these figures are right, I'm not joking, structures designed for humans. For instance, if you and I all...
Well, that's rubbish. For example, in a rush hour train, for example, right? Now, you can't get into a rush hour train. There were so many people crammed into it, right? Now, that train is never going to get any heavier unless every single person that's crammed into that space is actually a heavier person. But because of the amount of space involved, I don't think mathematically it can happen.
No. You don't understand. That's only at rush hour. Now, outside of rush hour, there's plenty of space in trains, and loads of fat people get on trains during non-rush hour times.
Yeah, but surely they
which will wear away at the brakes, having to cope cope with excessive weights
Well,
they
I'm saying-
haven't
no,
had
because-
to cope with before.
No, because what I'm saying is no matter how many fat people you have on a train, it will never weigh more than it does when it's crammed full of, whatever size
No, it will.
people.
It will. Believe me, it will. I mean, you don't realise how out of control things are supposed to be. And what we don't realise is the amount of propaganda we're getting. And what you have to say is, you have to say that the government are being led by the nose by vested, interested parties who, of course, are companies who internationally and commercially produce goods which are supposed to cut people's weight. Right? It's obvious, isn't it?
It is obvious.
Isn't that obvious?
It's obvious, that you
to you,
thought,
obvious
it's
to
obvious
me.
that you haven't thought this through.
I have.
David in Essex has texted into 81089. He says, Mike Porky Parry is such an expert on people's weight. The other week, he wanted to know how much you would weigh in gold. The answer is the bloody same as you do now.
Right, did you know that in...
You're not listening to a word I'm saying.
I am, because I've just picked up on what you said. In Dubai now, and some Middle East countries which are oil-rich and mineral-rich, people are rewarded for losing weight by they give them flakes of gold.
Are they?
They give them little flakes of gold, and they add them up like
maybe that would work.
into bars of gold. Well, we haven't got a lot of gold, and we haven't got enough money to pay people.
But I mean, the government could give people money to lose weight. I mean, they've actually tried bits of that in Scotland. I think they've given in parts of Scotland they were giving out like sort of food vouchers or healthy food vouchers, whatever it is, if you lose weight.
This is one of the things where it goes wrong, Mike. The new guidelines from NICE, which is some like National Service unit, urges
that's the body that chooses and decides what sort of health policies.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, urges GPs to raise the issue of weight loss in a quotes respectful and non-judgmental way. Why don't you just tell a patient who walks into your surgery, you are fat, and you're probably fat because you're stuffing too much food down your throat, you probably drink too much, you don't exercise, and you've probably got a Motability scooter outside.
You could do that job.
Well, I mean, you've just got to tell them straight.
Hospitals insulting people.
You've just got to tell them straight.
You have got to tell them straight. Mike Porky Parry, myself, Mike Graham, have got loads more to do. Coming up next, we're going to talk about California and how part of it wants to become an independent nation. We'll find out from LaDonna Harvey what on earth is going on there. This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. Mike Parry is sitting next to me. We are the two Mikes. We've been exploring the possibility of what to do about the massive number of obese people in the world, not just in Britain. Don't tell me that Mr. Parry does not set his sights very high on saving the world. A couple of interesting ideas. We'd like to hear a few more of them. You can call us if you like. 08717 223344. We're going to go across to the other side of the world, though, now.
Let's do that.
I have to say to you, one of the things that I noticed about the size of people in this country is that when I was in New York City not that long ago, I noticed how thin everybody was.
Yeah.
In New York, I mean, even when I lived there, it wasn't quite as bad as that. But everybody in New York now is very thin, very beautiful. You know, talk about Americans being fatter than us. Not true anymore.
Okay, so down in California, and you see these massive, great rumps on people who are walking around in shorts.
Which bit of California are you talking about?
Sorry, in Miami. I'm talking about Miami. And
you been to South Beach lately?
Where, in Miami?
Yeah.
No.
Well, South Beach is one of the trendiest places in the world.
Yeah.
You don't see anybody fat there either.
Well, you say that, but I mean, I used to see people there when I used to go down to Miami and Miami Beach and that. There are a lot of fat people.
Really?
Maybe they've reformed.
I think maybe they have.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk to LaDonna Harvey about something completely different.
Let's do
We
that.
want to talk about a part of Northern California that wants to break away from the state and form itself into another state. LaDonna, very good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Mike and Mike. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're very
Very
well
well,
indeed.
thanks.
I hope you didn't take any offence there from Mr. Parry saying the Americans are all fat, because I'm saying actually we're now worse off in this country because there's more fat people here than I ever see in parts of America that I go to now.
Well, you know, here in Southern California, if we get fat, we just go to the doctor and get it vacuumed out.
Yeah, good.
So we may technically actually be fatter, but you'd never know it because it's gone somewhere else. They're probably making soap. I have no idea.
Unbelievable.
And what do they do with all that stuff, by the way?
Oh, God knows. I don't know, build houses with it?
They build houses with it?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably could. That's not a bad idea. Now, tell us about this weird place up in Northern California. It wants to call itself the state of Jefferson. I mean, wouldn't this mess up the whole idea of the 50 states of the United States of America?
The Union.
Well, you know, they probably said that about 49 and 50. You know, gosh, if you add Alaska and Hawaii, it's going to mess the whole thing up.
Yeah, right.
This is actually one of those ideas that's been floating around California for quite some time. You know, you have the coastal cities, which sort of rule the entire state, and they tend to be much more liberal. And then you have all of the rest of the state that gets almost no representation at all. Their voices are just drowned out. So there was a guy in Silicon Valley that was talking about dividing us up into 6 states for a while, and now these folks in far northern California, so up on the border with Oregon, and a little bit inland, they're saying, you know what, we have no senators, we're being ignored, and we want our chance to become a state. But their chances are somewhere between slim and none.
Right. And are these people who are up there, the activists who are up there, are they of a particular kind of political persuasion, or are they kind of libertarians, or what's making them think like this?
Probably more libertarian and politically conservative.
Right.
And, California is run by what we call a supermajority. So we have a supermajority of Democrats who are very, very liberal up in the State House. And there is almost no way that conservatives can stop them from doing anything. So they've passed some really horrific laws.
LaDonna, I've always thought that most people in California are bonkers. They're fruitcakes.
Right.
Fruitcakes, and also, excuse me, it's an extremely rare breed of person in California that you've just told us about. Multi-millionaire, pop stars and movie stars who live in places like Malibu, who for some unknown reason must feel terribly guilty about their wealth, which they've acquired for, not doing very much in life. And so they turn a complete circle into being, the biggest liberal-minded, faint-hearted individuals who demand that everybody except them should pay massive taxes and they should rescue all the underprivileged. And it's just a completely screwball way of thinking.
Well, what's so odd about it is most of them were, if you ask them, and I think Elle Macpherson one day I heard her say, "Oh yes, I'm a total socialist," and I thought, well then I will take half of what you've earned, sweetheart, but I don't think you know what a socialist is.
No.
Well, it was like that great press conference when Al Gore did that ridiculous movie about saving the planet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
the Inconvenient Truth, which was later branded, the nine
complete rubbish,
a complete load of pack of lies. But they had Leonardo DiCaprio over in Cannes at the film festival, and somebody asked him the question, what exactly was he doing for, saving the planet? And he went, "I flew commercial." And everyone kind of looked around and said, what?
Yeah.
I didn't fly in a private jet, therefore I've actually made a huge contribution to the saving of the emissions of the planet.
That's right. I mean, LaDonna, shall we remind our listeners that California is a place where, for instance, when they couldn't find dogs that looked like the sort of dogs they wanted, they started towing bits of rock around on the end of leads, didn't they, and this sort of thing?
Really?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? This could be complete nonsense.
No, it's not.
Did that ever happen?
Not that I'm aware of, but nothing surprises me.
No, it did without a shadow of a doubt. Here, LaDonna.
Are you sure you didn't think it was a piece of rock they were taking around? It was just a very small dog.
No. People in Beverly Hills and Rodeo Drive were dragging bits of rock around on the end of a lead because they said that, it was cruel to keep a dog in captivity and they'd have a rock instead. No joke. And the other thing is, LaDonna, for instance, last time I was in California, in Santa Monica, with a friend of mine, we went to a restaurant. I've told Michael Graham this story before, and we had ordered a bottle of wine while we were looking at the menu. When the guy came to take the orders, we asked for another bottle of wine because that's the way British people drink wine. And instead of getting another bottle of wine, the guy went away and got us 2 advice leaflets on the dangers of excessive alcoholic consumption. I mean, this was a commercial restaurant which was supposed to sell as much as it could to you. Who said,
Well, they've probably never seen anybody drinking a bottle of wine in 2 minutes.
Well, maybe not, but they were. I mean, they're just. I just think people in California are crazy. This particular
state. Have you got
a
question at any point? Yes. She is our guest.
Yes, I know. This particular state that wants to set itself up, which is the nearest big town it's based around?
Oh boy, Del Norte, Tehama. These are actually really small towns, and what they've done is each of our states is divided up into counties, and they've got about 6 or 7 counties that have signed on to the idea of saying, let's ask Sacramento if we can split off, which Sacramento is never going to do because it doesn't matter how poor you are, they want your money.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
ultimately, that's what it boils down to.
the most famous state that we hear about on this side of the Atlantic is Orange County. Is Orange County, isn't it? Well, everything.
Right.
Clint Eastwood always seems to be blowing
Southern
people away
California.
in Orange County and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, so where does a place like, what is the advantage for the rest of them to disassociate themselves from the wealth of California, which I think if it was a country would be like the fourth richest country in the world or something?
I think it's the 10th largest economy. Unfortunately, it's sort of built on this house of cards. So the advantage was you would be able to get out from under California's debt, which is absolutely massive. We are billions of dollars in the hole. And, some of these folks are like, if you're not going to stop spending, the only decision that we can make is to run away from you.
Yeah.
And before you implode.
Yeah.
So you don't think it's ever going to happen by the sounds of things, Donna?
No, you know what? It's not going to happen. What has to happen if you it's called, secession. You would have to have local officials further study the idea. You would have to get approval from the state legislature, which is all of those people that you're trying to get away from, and they are never going to let you go. Let's say they decided that they would. Then it goes to Congress for a vote. And that's not going to happen. They don't want the hassle.
Yeah, Don, I'll give you another example of how nuts people are in California, right? When I was a reporter out there, no, seriously, when I was a reporter based in New York, I had to go over to Los Angeles for a week to cover a trial because 2 English doctors had gone out there on holiday, realised how mad people in California were, so they went back and devised a system of promising elderly Californian women everlasting youth by injecting them with the urine of young British lambs. And these... I'm not joking. These... yeah, it's true. And these women were...
Some people used to go to Switzerland for that treatment, didn't they?
Well, these women were queuing up. And what happened was they got so successful, these doctors, and so wealthy, that one of them decided he was the genius and the other guy was just the knave.
The salesman.
So he told him he was taking all the money, so the other guy decided to kill him. I mean, it was the most remarkable story, but it can only happen in California.
Absolutely right. Listen,
well,
LaDonna.
Look at what... Yes.
Go on.
No, go on. No, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, look at what Priscilla Presley did to her face. She had mechanical grade silicone injected into her face because she wanted to look younger. This is a woman with all the money. She's the widow of Elvis, for God's sake.
Yeah. It brings a whole new meaning. Brings a whole new meaning to the song "Always on My Mind," doesn't it? Really?
It certainly does.
Right.
Yeah.
Listen, LaDonna, we got
enough to go to a
unbelievable,
real doctor.
unbelievable. LaDonna, we've got to run. Thank you so much for enlightening us on all of that. LaDonna Harvey, she's from KOGO Radio in San Diego.
That's right,
which is a very nice part of the world indeed.
Do you not remember the lamb urine trial?
I do.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, I don't remember the trial, but I do remember the actual procedure because it's one of those things that people used to go to Switzerland
Is
for.
it? Well,
like when Keith Richards used to go to Switzerland and get his blood all changed over, in a clinic there, which is, as he always says, is one of the reasons he's still alive now. Is one that the quality of the drugs that he was taking was so good, and also that he changed his blood every few years.
Crikey.
But there was a craze definitely where some clinic in California, in Switzerland, would set itself up as a place where you could get injected.
Well,
with
that's what these guys did, and then one of them decided that he was getting ripped off by his partner. They plotted to kill each other. That plot was uncovered by the Californian police. It was mad. One of the guys went to jail for about 8 years. I mean, it could only happen in California.
Bizarre, absolutely bizarre. He's Mike Parry, I'm Mike Graham. We've got lots more to do. A couple of football stories to talk about coming up a little bit later on in the show. There's a couple of new owners on the horizon, for a Premier League club and one rather surprising one up in Yorkshire. Also, Porky's got a new pair of headphones that he's been showing off to me, so I'm going to be asking you about how cool they are because they look very, very cool indeed. This is Talk Sport. This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. Mike Parry is sitting next to me. We are together, the two Mikes. There will be a podcast out on iTunes in a few hours' time, of course. We've got lots more to do. A bit of football to talk about coming up. But Mr. Parry, you've got what looks to me there. I don't suppose you should probably mention the brand name, but a very handsome pair of headphones. You've had trouble. You had your headphones nicked a few weeks ago, didn't you?
I had them nicked and they
So you've
disappeared.
now got a new pair. They look fantastic. Are
And
they,
this
are they
cost
very expensive?
About a couple of £100, okay?
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Now, the point is, I'm sure they're great, but as
Yeah.
you'll notice, I'm not yet wearing them.
No.
And why am I not wearing them?
Did you just like to keep them in the case, do you?
I can't get them out the case.
What do you mean you can't get them out
I
of
am
the case?
absolutely not joking, Mike. And this is not a wind-up. See this hole here on the side?
Yeah.
Well, I use these scissors, which are quite long, to try and...
Careful.
Yeah, I know.
Careful.
This
You
is
don't
the
want
problem.
I don't want any blood
To try and break open the case.
Yeah.
I've had them for 2 days.
Oh, it's that really hard plastic, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had them, and it's welded together. See another incursion there where I've
Yeah.
tried to get in? It's
Can you
impossible.
not just rip them apart
In
with
the
your bare hands?
last 2 days, I've been trying to open this
Why don't you
hard
put them in the
plastic
oven
case.
like the Chinese food and it will just melt?
Well, it might melt the headphones inside, you fool. Right?
Sorry.
And the
I thought
point
it was a good idea.
No, the point is, I brought them in to show you because you will say, well, I'm a complete idiot, so I'm going to give you the opportunity to
Okay.
open this case. In 2 days, I swear to you...
Well, you know what?
I've got cut fingers, broken nails.
Yeah.
I'm terrified of putting a knife too deeply into this
Have you
case.
got like a bread knife, a serrated
I
edge
tried
knife?
it. I tried it, and the blade went blunt. And the point is that as these are very expensive headphones inside here, and I don't want to damage them because what happens is that you could easily damage a pair of headphones by putting one little pinprick in the ear things which keep all the sound out.
Yeah.
And
the
so
headphone part.
yeah, the
Let's have a
headphone
look at
part. I bet you can't open it.
Yeah.
I cannot open
Well, you know,
it.
there is a trick to this.
There's no trick
and
at all.
I've been told about this because actually what it does is if you peel it in half, right?
You can't peel it in half. I've tried everything.
So what you're trying to do is you're actually trying to, in some way, perforate it with a bit of a knife or a pair of scissors.
Yeah.
The best way to get to these, and I'll give you this as a tip, is get a can opener. If you put a can opener all the way around it,
Can opener?
you will actually open it, and you've got a can opener because I saw the other day.
Yeah, I've got a can
I was
opener,
very
yeah.
disappointed actually in you because you remember last week, and I said I took my hat off to you because you tried to make a pie.
Yes.
Even though it was a complete
Yes.
utter disaster.
Yes.
I was very encouraged by the fact that you'd done that. And then, ridiculously, just because I'd posted some rather interesting looking and very
Exotic foreign food.
Yeah, you posted a picture of some beans and sausages.
Yes, that's right.
In a can.
Yes.
So you've obviously got a can opener.
Well, it was a rung pull can anyway.
No, all right. Well,
but
if you've
I've definitely got a.
If you've got a proper can opener,
But I
like
mean,
an old-fashioned one,
it
I
is
reckon you
ludicrous.
can go all the way around it.
It's a ludicrous. You try and open that without a can opener. It's
I know.
impossible.
It
what
really
about
is.
people who haven't got a can opener? Because most
Well, who
people.
hasn't got a can opener?
Well, most people who buy headphones are not necessarily domestically kitchen oriented, are they?
Why not?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, most people might just only use these in a studio, not take them home. But you simply cannot open the package they're in.
It must be possible just
Well,
to
you're
force it
struggling
open.
now. Here's a pair of long-bladed
Maybe they're faulty.
scissors.
Maybe they're faulty.
But it is absolutely ludicrous. I simply don't know how to get them out of and that's why I'm not wearing them.
What you should do is give them to Dave, the producer. I'm sure he'll be able to open
Well,
them.
he might be able to, but I just don't want to damage the headphones which are inside. I mean, this is, packaging gone mad.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a
It
thing
is.
about packaging. I've still got 2 or 3 Easter eggs at home, and I haven't eaten those yet. Yeah, because they're in the fridge, but I just haven't got the time to open them because they've got so much packaging around them. It's unbelievable, a bit like these things. But look at this. See,
Why have you got two? Who gave you 2 Easter eggs then?
well, I sort of acquired them. By the way, did you take my Easter egg home for your children?
No,
Well, what happened to it
because I
then?
thought it might frighten them.
What happened to it?
I gave it to Dave.
I can't believe that.
It was a pirate Easter egg, and
Yeah.
it had like a hideous-looking figure on the front of it.
But that was designed to make your children laugh.
Well, they won't laugh. They would have been scared of
And
it.
it's stolen by the producer.
Yeah, he stole it. Yeah, he's a bit undernourished.
I tell you what, I'm losing faith in humanity.
Yeah,
Right,
now listen,
go on.
we've got a very patient man waiting on the other end of the phone line here.
Yeah,
It's a man
good.
by the name of Jay Reamer. He is the #1 etiquette guy to go to in Canada, right?
Excellent.
I know you're a big stickler for the rules in certain
Certainly am.
situations. I don't know if you saw the story this week that Louis Van Gaal,
Louis
as
Van Gaal.
we're now calling him, is a stickler
Van
for
Gaal.
discipline, right? And he's told the Manchester United players that basically he wants them all to eat lunch together.
Yep.
And when they do eat lunch together, he wants them to sit up very straight. He's going to treat them literally like schoolboys. I mean,
Yep.
we were hearing earlier that Roy Hodgson's got this very relaxed way of dealing with the England players. But this guy, Van Gaal, says that basically he wants all the players to behave well. He wants them to have good manners. And I think it's no bad thing.
No, I think it's a good thing. I think it's particularly as Manchester United, not next season, but normally are abroad and ambassadorial representation for this country. I totally agree.
Well, let's hear it from Mr. Jay Reamer.
Let's
and
do that.
See, I mean, maybe have some tips about how to open your headphone box as well. Jay, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
And good morning to you, too.
Now, I don't know whether you've got any tips on. I mean, I don't know if you can envisage. We're probably going to put this out on social media. I don't know if you can envisage the this ridiculous packaging, which is actually very, very. I mean, I've just tried to prise it apart, and you can't do it. It's this kind of moulded plastic that everything seems to come in nowadays.
Unbelievable.
You can't do it with regular shears. You've got to get some heavy-duty poultry shears and just go at it.
Have you got any of those, Mike?
No, it's ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. But anyway,
A chainsaw.
Yeah, well, it needs something like that. But Jay, it's ludicrous, the packaging situation. But anyway, you're not over concerned about that because that's not your problem. But etiquette is. And Jay, why do you think etiquette? Why do you think footballers, which you don't know a great deal about in your country, are the people who should now be leading the way etiquette-wise?
Etiquette-wise.
Football is in Europe. It's the most popular sport, and the thing is that the athletes who are fantastic, world-class athletes, especially on that Manchester United team, have a lot of young kids who look up to them as their heroes.
True.
Just like you and I had.
But do they really, though? Do they really?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
And what's happened is that these guys have been, over the course of the last few decades, have been able to get away with being sloppy. And they don't set a good example. The other thing is that this new Dutch coach, he wants to win games. And oddly enough, if these players have proper manners, they will win.
But surely, Joe, I mean, they spend their working hours, if you like, when they're playing football, being pretty rude to each other and being rude to the opposition, spitting on the pitch, and you can't really expect them to then come off that situation and then go and sit down and be told by somebody when they're grown men, well, you must sit up straight, you must eat with your knife and fork the right way. I mean, it's a recipe for disaster, isn't it, in this day and age of these guys, because they're all multi-millionaires, of course, as well.
No, it's really not. I'll tell you why. Because, first of all, these guys are smart enough to be able to have their different hats on. So that when they're on the field, they're playing football. When they're off the field, they're not playing football. They're normal people just like you and me. And the thing is that when they
nothing normal about Mr. Parry here, by the way, but that's another story.
Well, you know, we all have our quirks.
We'll ignore that.
But when they find themselves in the presence of important people, say the royal family or diplomats overseas or hosts overseas, for that matter, if they don't know how to behave properly, it gives them an ill-at-ease feeling. And when people feel ill-at-ease, they don't perform at their top peak. So athletes actually suffer because they wind up being ill-at-ease by not knowing what to do properly. So if somebody actually teaches them how to do things the right way, then they have this confidence that's all of a sudden thrust into them, and then they can relax, and they can actually be much better athletes and much better ambassadors.
I'm not sure I buy that, Jay, to be honest. But listen, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Jay, thanks very much.
By the way, I'm only going to interrupt you because there's a bit of a news flash here. Dave Levine, our producer, has just walked in with your headphones, completely and utterly freed from the shackles of that moulded plastic.
Yeah.
And he's done it in literally, 3 minutes flat?
Yeah, but you know what he used to get into it?
I don't know.
A chisel from the workman's box. A chisel.
What workman's box?
The workman's box that we have in every studio. Look at it. Look, see, look, he smashed it to pieces. Look at that.
That's amazing.
You know, that's a car crash of damage.
Well, I'll leave
to
that
this
there. I'll take a picture
case.
of that and put it out on social media.
Okay.
That's an extraordinary state of affairs.
It is, isn't it? Extraordinary.
Have you checked to see that they're working all right?
Well, no, because I'm talking to you.
You might have destroyed them.
Yeah, well, he might have done, yeah. But
which would be a very unfortunate state of affairs.
We can do that the other side of the top of the hour. But
thank
God they've been liberated now. That boy's just talking there, old Jay. He was talking about self-discipline, Mike, something you're not widely aware of. But what he's basically saying is...
What do you mean by that?
Well, you're not aware of self-discipline at all.
He's talking about etiquette that you can't even pronounce.
Listen, what he's saying if the boys can actually discipline themselves to put a blazer on and pick up the right knife and fork and address the menu properly and all that kind of stuff, then that gives them confidence as an individual to be able to be representative of the finer qualities of what
but it's all nonsense, isn't it?
British citizen should be all about.
No, because they're going
or a foreign citizen.
Well, how about if the England players are going to Brazil, right? It doesn't really matter. As much as you say, well, you know, lot young people look up to footballers, and yes, they do. I mean, lots of young players look up, young guys look up to Wayne Rooney, perhaps, or they look up to Adam Lallana, and they want to play football like them. But I don't really think that they actually, apart from wanting to be like them in the sense that they live this amazing life because they've got millions and millions and millions of pounds. I don't think they actually want. I don't think they want to copy everything they do because we're not in that kind of day and age anymore, are we?
Well, I think they do. I tell you what I think's interesting, Mike, by the way, talking about our heroes and all that. What about the 1D situation? Right?
One Direction.
Yeah. Now, two of those guys, not Harry Styles, he's the heartthrob, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, yeah.
But haven't two of the others been caught in pictures allegedly puffing?
Yeah, they have.
A
Well,
funny fact?
the Daily Mail did a story about it, and you know, it's been apparently they've been issuing all sorts of statements. They're trying to sort of get their.
But
PG
these boys
rating
are
back.
4 or 5 years now into being, aren't they? They started as teenagers on Britain's Got Talent, didn't they?
Yeah, well, the X Factor, one of the two.
Yeah, or something like that, and they're now over 20. Well, I'm sorry, that's just called growing up. And look, they've made tens of millions of pounds. Good for them.
Well,
I'm
apparently
delighted.
one of them wants to buy Doncaster Rovers.
One
you know,
wants to buy Doncaster
Rovers.
Rovers. That's right. I'll tell you what his name is, actually, because it's got
It's
here
Louis
on the front of the
somebody, isn't
paper.
it?
Hang on. His name is One Direction bad boy Louis Tomlinson, launching an audacious bid to buy struggling Doncaster Rovers. Louis, 22, caught in a drugs row this week, plans to become chairman of his favourite footy team. All I'm saying is, the boys have moved on. They're not teenage heartthrobs anymore. Little girls who've got their pictures on the wall can take them down now because I'm afraid they're...
Well, you think they should move on to some more
Of course
kind
they
of
should.
wholesome types of people?
Well, you know, Get Back had to. What's it? No, Take That. Take That had to.
Get Back?
Take That
That's a
had to.
Beatles record.
It is, yeah. Take That had to sort of move on, and they actually went out of existence for about 10 years and then came back as a mature pop group, didn't they?
They should have called themselves Get Back or Got Back.
That's right. And
We're Back.
Was it Blue Boys or Blue Band or something?
Blue.
Blue or something like that?
There was a band called Blue.
Was it Blue? Yeah. Were they a boy band?
They were.
Right, okay. Well,
They did a song with Elton John, you might remember.
Did they? Right. Well, they sort of grew up. So I'm sorry. What these little girls now, and I'm not mocking or denigrating little girls, but the little girls who were 13 or 14 are now 18 or 19, so they must accept that we've all grown up. And what we're waiting for now is the arrival of the next David Cassidy to be the next, teen heartthrob for
Well,
little
what
girls.
about the next One Direction?
Or next One Direction. Next One Direction.
We don't want to go back into like the times past.
Well, no, I don't mean David Cassidy, obviously, because he's about 60 now. But
But there's a lot of people who wouldn't know who he was, though. That's the point.
Oh, David Cassidy was the original heartthrob.
No, I know he was, but there's a lot of people
And
who...
they call it puppy love.
That was Dolly Osmond.
Oh, that was Dolly Osmond, that's right. Well, he was...
How Can I Be Sure, I think is the song you're looking for.
How can I be sure?
That was it.
In a world that's constantly changing.
Yeah. Deary me.
Dolly
More
Osmond
mistakes.
was the original...
More mistakes.
Was the original heartthrob.
More mistakes in an hour than Lewis Hamilton. Absolutely extraordinary. Mike Porky Parry. This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham and Mike Parry is here with me. I'm delighted to say, Mike, there's been a lot of people actually who've been on social media, and I've just taken a picture of that. In fact, I'll take another picture of it.
Have you taken a picture of this?
I'm going to take
I
a better picture of it now.
I want to show the
you hold
audience
it up.
exactly what I've been fighting against.
Yeah, I know. You've now moved it too far away for me to take a picture. Just put it back down, and I'll get
yeah,
you
but
in the background.
I want them to see the headphones as
I
well.
want to see the headphones as well.
Yes.
All right, okay.
How's that?
All right, that's good.
Is that good?
Yeah. Yes, it's the only show where we actually take live pictures and tweet them out. It's a fantastic thing.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
it is a ridiculous situation.
By the way, these headphones are brilliant.
Are they?
These are twice as good as the headphones I took off.
That doesn't
Right?
surprise me.
Yeah, they are brilliant. And do you know
TalkSport
what?
is very, very good at many things.
Yeah.
But technologically speaking, we're not exactly the cutting edge, are we?
Well, no, I think that's a bit unfair. The point is,
Well,
these get
headphones have been here ever since I've been here, and probably ever since you've been here.
Well, I mean, they get used a lot, don't they? So, we're 24-hour-a-day broadcasting, but these are your state of art. What do they? They're designed to keep all the sound outside in the outside world out of my head and my ears, so I can only hear what's coming up through the line of communication with you.
What will be interesting, the true test of them will be if you're actually out in public, because you know how now people, particularly a lot of footballers now, like to wear these big headphones over the tops of their heads rather than the little buds.
When they listen to music,
When they listen to music.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, I'll tell you the story later of what actually happened to me today when I was trying to get myself down to the South Coast, because the train service was ridiculous, right, appalling.
Yeah.
But I was on a bus. Because I ended up yet again on another replacement bus.
No
service,
train.
right? No train.
Disgraceful.
And this guy was sitting, listening to music on his headphones, and it was so loud, he was about 4 seats in front of me, that I could hear Christopher Cross. Remember that song Sailing by Christopher Cross?
No.
It was a big song in the sort of early
Remember
late
Sailing
70s.
by Rod Stewart?
Yeah, no, this was a different one.
Right.
But it was too loud. Now, I hope that these ones, if you ever play music through them, everybody else
Well, we
won't
don't
be
want
able
to
hear
play
what you're
music
listening
to them.
Well,
We're a
that's what-
speech station, you know.
Well, that's what most people have headphones for, though. I'm not talking about... presumably you listen to music from time to time.
No, I don't know.
Don't you?
Well, very rarely. I mean, what do I listen to music for? I mean,
Well, 'cause
sometimes...
music's a big part of your life. You're
Well,
always singing. You're always like recounting, all of these great stories of various rock stars.
Yeah, but sorry. I do listen to music at home. I might recline on my couch overlooking the harbour and having a glass of wine, listen to music.
Have you got a smoking jacket?
Well, I've got a summer and a winter dressing gown.
Have you?
I've got the fleecy one for the winter, and I've got a silk one for the summer.
Silk?
Yeah, silk.
Well,
yeah.
so you look like, what's his name from Department S? Jason King.
Jason King, yeah, a bit. Yeah, I do look a bit like him. I look a bit more like the guy who, who wrote all the plays and had the cigar, had the cigarette in the holder. No. He was very famous. He wrote all the plays. He starred in some plays.
Edgar Wallace?
No.
Alfred Hitchcock?
No. This was during the war.
What war?
The Second World War. How many wars have there been? And I can't remember his name now, but he was very famous anyway, and he's knighted in the end. In fact, I think he didn't get a knighthood because he said of one production, well, if that's not good enough to get me a knighthood, I don't know what is.
Cole Porter?
That apparently annoyed the royal family, and it wasn't Malcolm Muggeridge, no.
Malcolm Muggeridge,
no. No. Anyway, the point of the story is that, yes, I do listen to music at home sometimes, but I don't listen to it through headphones because that's unsocial. That means it's only going into your head.
Well, it's antisocial only if you're with other people. But
No, it's not. No, it's antisocial to listen to music through headphones on your own.
I mean, if I'm on my own, say, my flat in London, I'll sometimes listen to music through the headphones just so I don't disturb the neighbours.
No, that's antisocial.
Why? There's nobody else there.
But I like to feel that the music I'm listening to, if it's a bit of Oasis or a bit of Beatles or something like that, is actually bouncing off the walls and coming back to me. You know what I mean? That's what I like.
By the way, you know what I did on this coach? What I decided was I didn't want to hear this guy's music, so I put my own headphones in and I listened to a White Album.
Did you?
What a fantastic
Where'd you get
album.
that from?
It's on my iPad.
Ah, that's interesting.
I know that technology is not something you really understand, but I've got 5,000 songs on my iPad.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And which track off the White Album?
I listened to the whole thing.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
That's about 4 hours.
It's not 4 hours. Well, I listened to one. I listened to one
it's a
side
double
of
album.
it. I listened to one side of it.
So you listened to a quarter of it?
Well, I listened to about 7 or 8 songs.
Yeah, you just said the whole thing, and now you just said one side. Well, there's 4 sides. That's a quarter of it.
Well, I listened to about a good number of the songs anyway.
Did you listen
I'm trying
to
say something nice about the Beatles?
Yeah, good. Did you listen to the side that had Back in the USSR on?
Yeah, I did, but I didn't listen to that because I didn't want to listen to a rowdy song. So
I
it was
see.
Bungalow Bill and While My Guitar
Dear
Gently
Prudence
Weeps and all
is
that.
the one that follows Back in the USSR.
Blackbird.
Dear Prudence.
Well, I can tell you exactly what I
Won't
listened
you
to.
come out to play?
I'll just get it. Yeah, but don't start singing the Beatles now.
That was written about Mia Farrow's sister when they
Was
were
her
all...
name Prudence?
No, I don't think it was.
Why was it
I
called
don't
Dear
know.
Prudence
Maybe it was.
then?
Yeah, could have been. Yeah, could have been. But that's when they were all in India and they started losing confidence in the Maharishi Yogi.
Uh-huh.
And when they told him we were going home, this is a famous story, when John Lennon told him we were going home because, they'd had enough, he said, why are you deserting me? And John Lennon said to him, if you're so cosmic, Yogi, you should know.
Well, here it is. I've got the Beatles' White Album, Disc 1 and Disc 2, okay?
Right.
Back in the USSR is track number 1.
Followed by Dear Prudence.
Followed by the continuing story of Bungalow Bill.
No, that's wrong.
me.
It's in the wrong order.
Is it?
I tell you how it goes. It goes Back in the USSR, Dear Prudence, and then Glass Onion is the third one.
Okay, well, maybe I'm missing a few then.
Looking through a glass onion.
All right, I don't want you to sing the whole thing.
Boom,
anyway, well,
boom,
listen, let me tell you
about
why.
fields.
Would you stop singing the Beatles?
Yeah, go on,
I'm
go on.
sorry I started it now. I decided I had to go back. I had to go down to the South Coast today.
Right.
Even though I was working tonight and I was working last night.
Right.
Because I had to go pick up my new car, right, which I'll tell you about in a minute.
Sounds great.
But here's the thing. I decided, it's got to all be done at a reasonably sort of. You've got to do it very carefully because you know as well as I do. We work these hours. You have to sleep a certain amount of time, otherwise you're just knackered. You can't do anything, right?
Exactly.
So I decided I'll get a train around about sort of 2:00 and I'll get down there for 3. I'd arranged with the car guy. I said I'll pick the car up just after 3. So I got to London.
A car as well.
It is.
Parked outside.
Got to London Bridge Station. Took me a while to park it, by the way, as well. Got to London Bridge Station. All trains to Hastings have been cancelled. No explanation.
See, I don't get how you can possibly run a service like that and just say to your commuters, by the way, I'm not taking any trains to Hastings today.
It's
That's
incredible.
disgraceful.
Well, South Eastern Railway now are following me on Twitter because I've been complaining so much that they actually want me to stop complaining on Twitter because they're embarrassed.
Have they made this clear to you?
They have. They said, we've now started following you. Could you please DM us with your complaints? And I said, well,
Really?
And I said, well, I'd like to DM you with my complaints. Well, I've got so many complaints that I can't begin to tell you. Because you remember a few weeks ago I had to get a replacement bus.
Of course I do.
And the bus actually broke down.
Bus broke down.
Right? And so this, as a result of this, right, I said, so how am I going to get to Hastings? And this guy who was down in the sort of ticket, he said, you can probably get a train to Tunbridge Wells. Probably. And then the train to Tunbridge Wells turned up, only 4 carriages, so no seats on it at all.
Yeah.
And this is in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And then so we got all the way to Tunbridge Wells, no indication of what was going on, shuffled out onto this bus. It took me 2.5 hours to go on a journey.
An absolute disgrace.
A journey that would normally take an hour and 10 minutes.
And you tell those people at Southern that there's nowhere in the world you're going to be censored because you have an absolute right as an international broadcaster and just an all-round commuter with concerns to share their incompetence when it happens. It may not be their fault, but their name is on it. Their name is on it. And you have the right to share it with millions of other commuters.
And then just to add insult to
listeners.
injury, right? I was following their Twitter account. When I got on this bus at Tunbridge Wells, they said nobody said anything about the trains being put back on. As I was leaving Tunbridge Wells, about 15 minutes later, they tweeted out the trains are now running again from Tunbridge Wells to Battle. And I said to myself, well, why, if they told me that, I could have waited for a train.
Exactly.
But before I got on the bus, there's another thing that happened.
Yeah.
There's a guy standing there with his kind of clipboard and his phone, and he's saying to people, "This is a train to Hastings. This is a bus to Hastings."
What was the name of the guy on the buses?
No, Blakey.
Yeah. Butler.
He didn't have half the. He didn't have half.
I hate you.
He didn't have half the personality, right? And so I got off, and people were filing on. There's only one bus, of course, right? Yeah. And I said to this guy, I said, "Have I got time to have a quick cigarette?" He said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, have I got 5 minutes?" He said, "No, the bus is going straight away. If you miss it, you miss it."
Oh, that's
very
handy,
well, that's
isn't it?
charming. Some other guy came out with a great big case, and he goes, "You have to put that under there." Like, didn't offer to help him. Just said, throw it under the bottom of the bus.
Unbelievable.
And this old guy said, "Well, I want to take the case on board with me."
Yeah.
He said, "Well, if you're not going to put the case under there, you can't get on the bus."
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally like treating you like absolute savages.
Mate, you should have gone up to him and done my impression. Hey, Butler.
I hate you, Butler.
I hate you, Butler.
Yeah. But it was just, I just find
Butler.
it astonishing that, and of course, the big argument I've got with these guys is that I've missed meetings because I've been late. I've had to get taxis because I've been late, and they don't compensate you for that.
I know.
And they've said to me, "Well, please put your complaint in writing." I'm like, "I haven't got time.
No, exactly.
I have not got time to do this."
To process a bit of paper for the next 3 months and then get a refund of £13.20. Wouldn't buy a round of drinks if you went out with Al.
I know, absolutely awful. But on the upside, I did pick up the car, and it is a massive beast of a car.
It's a beast of a car, because I've parked bonnet to bonnet with you tonight, right, in my sleek Mercedes. And I have to say, your bonnet is twice as high off the road as my bonnet.
Yeah, well, you know where my
it's a monster.
Where my flat is in London, there's those poles, and when I used to have the Citroen, I used to have to be very careful where I park, not only in case I hit the flagstones, I've got another flat tyre, but the mirror would sometimes smash into the pole.
What pole?
They've got poles on the side of the pavement, right? So it stops you from going up on the pavement. Those kind of black,
I understand.
Those black poles,
yes.
right?
So people can't sort of put their two left-hand wheels on.
But they say about 3 or 4 feet.
So I just knocked the microphone.
Yeah,
there.
well, you got new headphones. That must have hurt.
I was just gesticulating.
The mirror coming out the side of the car would sometimes you'd have to be careful it didn't hit the side of the pole. When I came in with this Land Rover, it's about a foot. It clears it by about a foot.
Oh,
That's
I see. So you got no problem with the poles and the mirrors.
No,
have you got a button which swings the mirrors in when you park?
I have.
So that passing buses don't rip off you. Because that happened to me in my first Jag. A passing bus always used to tear the mirror off.
And that costs a fortune as well. If they're retractable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you a bit more about the car coming up very, very shortly. We're going to give Porky a Yorkshire quiz coming up, and we're going to talk actually about another kind of car which doesn't have a driver at all. This is TalkSport. This is TalkSport Extra Time. He is Mike Parry, I'm Mike Graham. We are the two Mikes. There will be a podcast. Do you mind not blowing your nose while we're actually on the air?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean
to. That's why we have breaks if you need to blow your nose.
No. Sorry about that. That was very inhospitable of me, but I'm sorry.
Not very good etiquette.
My tissues have only just arrived, and that was the problem.
Had them specially shipped in from Outer Mongolia.
No. I need those delicate ones so that my nose doesn't go all red.
I thought you used to pinch all your tissues from the local fast food shops.
No, that's just to keep my mitts clean. If I happen to be out and about. But I have to be very, very careful because I have a very sensitive nose and it tends to go red and chapped if I don't use the proper balsam tissues, which only just arrived in the office because, the people who look after the things for us are a bit slow off the ball tonight. That's all I'm saying. Don't say anything more.
Amazing. Now, if I said to you cryogenics, what would that make you think of?
Well, that would make me think of an episode of The Saint, circa 1965, when he stumbled upon, a sort of country manor because his friend, a great scientist, worked nearby.
Right.
And
I never knew who the Saint worked for. Did you ever know who he worked for?
He worked for himself, didn't he?
But what was it? Because he wasn't like MI5, wasn't like James Bond.
The only thing I can think is, I think historically he must have been a soldier in the British Army,
Yeah.
and then in the SAS, and then I think he became a very successful mercenary who sort of led coups in Africa and all that kind of stuff, and made himself millions of pounds doing it. That's the only thing I can think of, because he lived in this very swish flat in Chelsea, down the King's
he's the
Road.
only cool guy that ever drove a Volvo. As well.
Only cool guy ever drove a Volvo, pulled all the women because he had great suits and a great tailor and all that kind of stuff. Of course, it was Roger Morley's best, wasn't it?
It was.
And I was always very envious of the son. I thought, one of these days I'm going to grow up, I'm going to be like him. And I did end up like him. I
had like Ian St. John.
No. I had a Jaguar car, which was similar to his Volvo of the day, if you see what I mean. I was, a man about town, international playboy, jet setter. No, I was.
Your suits never looked quite so good on you as they did on him.
I didn't wear a lot of suits, we had different sort of jobs and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, the point of my
I'm asking you about cryogenics.
And I'm telling you exactly what I'm saying. So this guy, the Saint...
You're telling me exactly what you're saying?
Yeah, he goes into this manor house and he suddenly finds in the cellar that this crazy guy who runs the place has suddenly found he's only got 6 months to live. So he's investigating... freezing his own body and bringing himself back in, maybe 20 or 30 years when they've found a cure for the particular disease that he's got. And in order to pursue this research, when Simon Templar gets into the cellar, he finds all these glass-fronted cupboards in which all these frozen monkeys are, have been cryogenicanized, or whatever it's called. You know what I mean?
Well, what's interesting is that we're about to talk to a very esteemed surgeon, Dr. Peter Reeves, the Chief of Trauma, Critical Care, Burn and Emergency Surgery, as well as Professor of Surgery at the University of Arizona.
Yes.
Because to a lot of people, cryogenics has been this kind of science fiction story.
That's what I'm saying.
And I've actually spoke to a guy who was running a clinic somewhere in the Midwest in America a few years ago, whose father had got sort of into cryogenics, and he was taking something like $26,000 off people and cryogenically freezing their head on the basis that they would come back sometime in the future.
Only their head?
Just only their head,
So, sorry, they've decapitated the head from the body.
Yeah, and they would...
And they freeze the head.
And they would freeze the head on the basis that the brain is obviously inside the head.
This is Spooksville.
And that you would then be able to somehow reattach it to a different body sometime in the future, which I always regarded as a bit of a scam, to be honest.
Yeah.
But let's talk to Dr. Peter Reed, because
Let's do that.
Because it's now entered mainstream sort of medicine, and they're going to use the cryogenic technique to actually bring people back to life who have suffered terrible trauma. Dr. Peter Reed, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I hope you don't think that our introduction to the subject was a little kind of scatterbrain, but as I was saying, cryogenics, generally speaking, kind of makes us think of the sort of the weird and the wonderful aspects of science fiction and some of these wacky clinics that have been set up over the years. But it's taking a new sort of twist now.
Yes, it seems to have done that. We are now going into clinical trials where we're going to see if people who have bled to death can be preserved so that we can fix the holes in their blood vessels and then bring them back to life.
I mean, this is very science fiction, Doctor, but clearly you as a medical man and knowing the possibilities of success of this particular method, you can't be wasting your time. You must think in reality people can be brought back to life decades after, to the rest of the world, they've expired.
Well, I wouldn't say decades. I think we can do preservation of the brain for maybe about an hour. That's what we're hoping for.
I see.
We all know that.
I see. We're not freezing these people like in big sort of metal cases for years and years.
No, I think that is probably more of a hoax and a little bit of snake oil more than anything else. But we know that people who have fallen into ponds of ice where they're dead for a while can be brought back to normal, and that's because the temperature of the brain can be brought down very quickly. And if we can do that, we can, have a chance of bringing them back. But the current technology says that maybe it's about an hour to possibly 2 hours.
There is a school of thought, I think I'm right in saying, Doctor, that if you are under ice or your body does become very cold, that you can almost be in kind of suspended animation for a while, and that can help in terms of the amount of time you guys need to try and bring people back.
Right. And we actually do that every day nowadays. We do it in cardiac surgery and pediatric surgery where under controlled situation we will lower your brain's temperature, and that gives us a little bit of time to work in the major blood vessels coming out of the heart, and gives us a situation where we can operate on these blood vessels without it bleeding to death. So the question is, can we do that in a trauma setting where we can do it very quickly after you've already come in and have already died.
Yeah. So what's the difference, Doc, between what you've just described and somebody whose brain is starved of oxygen for so long that they end up suffering terrible brain damage?
Well, it's all a matter of when you start the process. If you died a day ago, obviously your brain cells are dead and they're irreversibly dead. But if you have just recently died, and in those situations where they come into our hands and they just recently died, I'm talking about minutes, but we try to save their life, 95% of the time we fail. So we think we can try to buy some time by cooling your brain down rather than focusing on stopping your bleeding.
Well, I mean, this is gone beyond science fiction now. It's reality.
I wondered, let me just ask you one more question,
Yeah.
Dr. Ree, because you first demonstrated this technique in pigs in the year 2000. We're sort of 14 years on from there. Is there a chance that this will reach some kind of different area of medicine, that the technique can be used for other things?
Well, right now we are concentrating on just using hypothermia or cold to preserve the brain cells, but I think that the possibility does exist that we can come up with a drug that will stop your metabolism, so your brain doesn't, your cells don't die from the deprivation of nutrients. But this is again quite different than actually freezing your brain cells, which I think right now we've been conclusively be able to show that we can't thaw your brain and bring them back because there's irreparable brain damage at that point.
Right. So that's not something that we can do now, but maybe something for the future. Dr. Peter Ree, thank you very much indeed. Chief of Trauma, Critical Care, Burn and Emergency Surgery at the University of Arizona. It's fascinating, this stuff, you know. Because the brain is something we don't know very much about, even now.
It's true.
Right? And I don't know if you saw there was some experimentation done quite recently where they took somebody's brain and they were kind of almost slicing it with
don't I need to know this?
No, it's a medical story. It's not like some kind of murder.
Horrible.
Why is it horrible?
Slicing up somebody's brain.
Well, he wasn't slicing it up, but they were experimenting with the brain, but they were able to slice it so thin that it was almost like a carpaccio kind of slice. You know?
Oh, God, you make it sound like, putting it on one of those ham carver things.
Well, it was, yeah.
Used to be in the old butchers.
Well, actually, yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, right.
Oh, no, that was only slicing up ham, not brains.
No,
God, I can't bear the thought of it.
But what they were able to then do...
driving me mad.
All right, would you calm down for a second?
Well, I'm upset. They've got this vision in my head of a sliced up brain. I don't want to think about it. We only know about 5% of the brain anyway. Did you know that?
I do know that.
We
That's
only
partly
know
what
that
I'm trying to tell you.
We only know about 5% of the workings of the brain. The other 95% is a mystery. And I have to say, there are some people...
your brain's a mystery.
No, I knew you were going to say that. I have to say, in the world that I live in, believe me, 95% of people I meet look as though they've got some sort of, things happening in their brains which I find inexplicable.
Well, just imagine how many brain cells of yours that have died off over the years because you can't remember anybody's name.
10,000 die every minute, don't they?
Well, in your case, yeah. Noel Coward is the guy you were thinking of.
That is the guy.
A lot of people have been texting
That is the guy. Thank you very much indeed.
Perry in Chessington said that. Lots of other people as well. Alan said Noel Coward as well. So
that's the guy.
So normally I do know what you mean, but I couldn't.
You couldn't get it because you're not bright enough.
Well,
but
I couldn't think of who it was.
Fortunately,
because a lot of people lose a lot of brain cells because of their lifestyle. A lot of alcohol, for example, contributes to loss of brain cells. That's why you can't remember anything sometimes after a long night.
No, I don't believe that for a minute.
Why not?
I know people who are very regular social drinkers who are some of the brightest people I've met. Seriously.
Yeah. But can they remember names?
Yeah, they remember anything. A couple of writers I know who write great columns, spot on and have a pin-sharp memory. We met a lot of these guys in America, and they drink a lot. I don't think alcohol kills brain cells at all. I think what kills brain cells is inactivity of the brain. And, if you're a couch potato or you lead a sedentary lifestyle, your brain will die first.
Sedentary. Now, let me ask you one final question. It's a yes or no answer because we're nearly out of time.
Okay.
If somebody said to you that in the future they will be able to rebuild your body in a slightly better way, so we'll cryogenically freeze your head, and in 30 years' time you can come back and live as somebody else, would you do it?
No.
Thank God for that. This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham, and Mike Parry is right here looking very puzzled by the music. It looks as if you might recognise that music. You're staring off into space, and your memory bank's starting to churn.
It's some space odyssey, isn't it?
No.
Was it?
No, it's a TV show. Has to do with a car.
Oh, is it Knight Rider?
It is Knight Rider.
Knight Rider.
There you go. Very good. Yeah, so you did
see.
find it after all. Now,
Yeah.
Derek in Pencoed has sent a text in. He
Or
says,
in
Porky.
you mean in Pencoeth?
Pencoed, actually.
No, Pencoeth.
No, it's Coed.
No. I was born on the Welsh border, mate. You know, I've got a lot of Welsh friends. Pencoeth.
Yeah, but this is the other end of Wales, it's South Wales.
I don't care. They don't speak a different sort of
I'm
Welsh.
sure Derek will tell me, and you can by all means text in again, Derek, to 81089. It's Pencoed, actually, is how you say it.
Pencoeth.
Yeah. Anyway, he says, Porky, you said that it's antisocial to listen to music through headphones when on your own. When I do, I don't have it at full volume. And how often do we hear of someone being taken to court for playing music at full volume, disturbing their neighbours? Now, that is antisocial. That's what I'm saying.
No, I
You
don't
should
disturb my
listen-
neighbours. I
No.
don't play it late at night or anything like that. I just let it waft out of the open, double glazed windows, doors, or whatever you call them, out into the air, giving people the benefit
Well, what
of...
if somebody else has got their doors open?
Well,
Don't
it's
they hear
all right.
your music?
No, well, I'm talking about sort of 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm not talking about
All
late
right.
at night. I don't do it late at night. Listen,
Okay.
let me read this out. This comes from Stephen Smith.
Yeah.
And Steve is clearly a Manchester United fan because his little thumbnail picture is the Manchester United logo.
Is it?
And he says, Mike Parry, MJ... no, sorry.
Can you not just read the
MG.
tweet out?
It says, here's the answer to your problem, Porky. If you can get in the package, it is. Now, what he sent me is, right, and I'll just open this picture up. It's called Stop Struggling with Those Stubborn Plastic Packages, and it's a yellow hand grip type thing with almost like a jaw on the end.
Oh, right.
And it's
So it's a
designed...
bit like a can opener then?
Yeah, well, not really, because it's more of an eater type thing. You press the jaw together by the look of it. And this is a terrible indictment of the packaging industry in this country, that you've got to produce a special tool just
get
to
into it.
open the packaging. But looking at this, and it's on a card with plastic over it, you might need something to get into the package that contains the tool to open other packaging. I mean, it's
So you just
bizarre.
keep buying more and more tools to get into more and more packaging.
Exactly.
It could be an absolute nightmare.
But thanks anyway.
Now, well, while you're reading tweets out, there's one coming to extra time from Gaynor Jackson.
Oh, Gaynor, one of my favourite correspondents.
Yeah, she says, I'm terribly sorry, but Mike Parry's so rude, never listens to a word anyone else says.
What?
He just loves the sound of his own voice and his views. I have to say, Gaynor, you're a very astute woman, because I battle with him all the time.
Well, I find
because-
that incredibly odd. A. Gaynor is a great fan of mine, or at least I thought she was. And
Well, she's
B,
obviously seen the light.
B, if she doesn't understand that I have to consistently correct you in what you're saying, because otherwise you would lead the audience a merry dance into areas of misnomers, half-baked ideological fantasies, and basically rubbish.
Oh, OK. Well, all I can tell you is this from Simon Laguna in East London. He says, Mike, Porky's brain went a long time ago. He made a statement and he believes that a man will one day run the 100 metres in 1 second. Please ask him if he still thinks this will happen.
Well, look, I'm not...
By the way, is that noise coming out of your phone again?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I'll
Can
put
you
it
not
on...
just put it on silent?
Yeah, all right.
I mean, you come into
How'd you do that?
record
A minute.
a studio.
a minute,
You come
a
into
minute.
a radio studio
Yeah.
and you put it on silent.
OK, that's done.
I thought there was something going on. I thought I was hearing noises in my head.
No. On the 100 metres 1 second, people take that too literally. What I'm saying is that the speed at which a man runs 100 metres will keep going down over the years, over the decades, over the centuries. It's
And the
bound to.
millennium, even.
And over the millenniums, it's bound to, because A, a man will get bigger, his stride will get longer, and he will be physically more useful. So
If he's not more and more obese.
So one of these days, well, athletes aren't obese, are they? One of these days, way beyond the life term of you and your next maybe 10 descendants, you will find that they'll have to make it a 350-yard sprint instead of 100 metres, because you'll get across that time in barely more than a second.
Barely more than a second?
Yeah, because of the length of stride and the fact that... by the time the man's taken off from the starting blocks, he'll be halfway down the 100-metre track anyway. You've seen the way that guys run 60-metre races these days, indoors usually. That will be like 100 metres very soon, because every record in the world which is related to physical endeavour gets broken all the time. So where's it going to end up? You tell me how it's going to end up.
Broken by
it's actually going to end up
fraction.
in zero.
Well, it's never going to end up in zero, because if that was the case, suddenly it would actually end up in the negative. And
So
so
where
people
will
would
it-
actually
where
win
will it
races.
stop then? Where will it stop?
It will never. It will. Well, normally what happens with things like this is it starts to diminish by smaller and smaller amounts, so that the infinitesimal change.
I'm not disagreeing
is
with
actually
that.
tiny, but it will never get to 1 second. Why don't we listen to what you said originally?
How long will it be before a man runs from the start to the end of the 100 metres track in 1 second.
Don't be so stupid.
Well, every record that's ever been set in athletics has eventually been beaten, hasn't it?
Right.
In speed or distance.
Right. No human will ever run 100 metres in 1 second.
That's the venerable Andy Townsend,
Yeah.
now with
Rubbishing
ITV,
me.
of course,
Yeah.
rubbishing you.
Yeah.
And I have to say, Andy Townsend, a very perspicacious man. He's been proved correct because you've just admitted now, you've started watering it down already.
Since-
it's actually not going to happen.
Since we had that conversation, the world record for 100 metres has been broken 3 times.
All right.
I rest my case, okay?
Well, you can rest as much as you like. Derek in Pencoed in South Wales has sent this in to 81089. He says, Mike, and he's addressing me on this one,
Right.
you are right in the way you pronounce my hometown, not the way that numpty Porky claims. So
Really?
you're wrong about
Yeah.
that as well.
Well, that just fits the bill, doesn't it?
It certainly
Just
does.
because you speak to him a few times more often a week than I do, he's on your side.
No, I just happen to know how to
Very
pronounce names
disappointed.
in
If
South...
that's Derek from Llangollen or wherever.
Pencoed.
Oh, Pencoeth, which is
You can't
nearby.
say it, can you?
I'm going to.
You can't say it.
I'm going to knock him off my Christmas card list
Really?
for once and for all.
Oh, well, he can join me then. I don't get one either. Now, you said to me, here's another thing you got wrong. A few weeks ago,
Yep.
do you remember I said to you, Google are going to develop this car,
Yep.
which is a driverless car, and basically you can go, you sit in the back of it. I said that they were developing them for doing
brilliant, isn't
Google
it? Yeah.
Street View and all this kind of thing. Well, they have now developed it. They released it onto the market yesterday. You can't actually buy it yet, but I don't know if you saw the footage of it on TV. Amazing footage of this car just driving around, people
Yeah.
sitting in the back of it.
Yeah.
Now, what they say, and we had a big debate about cycling last night, some of which you may have heard. Quite a lot of cyclists, by the way, who are very kind of mean-spirited people, chasing me all day on Twitter, and trying to, didn't listen to the show, kept going on and on and on about, one of the debates. In fact, there was a guy that rang in from Norwich called Greg, right? Have a listen to what he had to say.
Yeah, but the red lights don't really apply to cyclists. It's more of a car thing.
Oh, I see. Imagine saying that.
Do you know, I've seen it, Mike. I've stopped at lights sometimes on the way home from here, maybe 5 in the morning. The roads aren't busy, I'll take that. But cyclists come up alongside me. They only pause for a second. They don't even stop their bike and put their foot down. They just go straight across a red light. And that's how accidents are happened, and that's
Well,
what
this guy
makes
said-
them laws upon unto themselves.
This guy said basically that he goes through red lights when he knows there isn't anything coming. Well, what about a pedestrian? Or what about if a car suddenly comes out of nowhere?
Exactly.
Or, whatever. But Dave was telling me, the guy, producer behind the glass
Yeah.
there, that one day he was sitting at traffic lights and this cyclist came up on the outside of him and just leaned against his car.
Yeah.
Just put his arm
Yeah,
against
yeah,
the car.
used it as a rest.
And he rolled his window down and said, "You're right there, mate." The guy said, "Yeah, just enjoying the day."
Yeah.
Incredible.
And using my car as a crutch.
But one of the things that I wondered about in the wake of that, it's all very well for them saying, what the guy from Google was saying was most of the accidents that happen in cars are due to people making, human error, making mistakes, bad judgment. He says that these cars will know exactly where to go. They will be pre-programmed through sat-navs or whatever. They will only turn when they're supposed to turn. They will stop at lights and all of that. But how will they deal with the cycling problem? Because I'm not sure they
Well,
can.
they'll have sensors all over the car. Now, just to explain to our listeners, Mike, the idea is that you said they're controlled by sat-nav. They are, but you actually program it yourself on your mobile phone. Do you know that?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you. See, I'm telling you things you don't know. You only got half the story as usual. What happens is, before you get in your car, you whip out your mobile phone. Now, much in the same way as an airline pilot will put a program into the automatic pilot,
Yeah.
right, which can both take the plane off and land the plane without any problem at all, and do everything in between, you can pre-program your car. You then get in your car. Now,
Pre-program it to go to a particular place, you mean?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Well, of course. I mean, it's not going to just go through... But that's obvious, isn't it?
It's not because you didn't know. How did
Well,
you
of course
think
I
it was
did
going to
know.
get from A to B?
Well, because it would be programmed into the car.
And how would it be programmed?
Well, it could be by a variety of ways. It's probably got a computer
rubbish.
on board.
No, rubbish. I've just told you how you do it. You do it on your mobile phone. Now, here, I found out all the details that you didn't know about and didn't tell our listeners about. The electric two-seaters, limited to 25 miles an hour, have no controls, steering wheel or pedals. That's amazing. They take.
By the way, can I just point out that when I suggested that this was going to happen, you poo-pooed the idea altogether.
I don't think I
and
did.
said that it would never happen.
I don't think I did. And it goes on to say, they take you where you want to go simply by using a smartphone app and an e-stop start button. Google is building 100 prototypes for testing in California. Well, we just said everybody in California is mad.
Well, they're not mad. They're geniuses with this.
It's no wonder it's going there. And it'll happen this summer. The first was unveiled yesterday. The friendly-faced cars, they made the cars out to look like a friendly face by putting 2 lights and a control board in the middle to make it look like a nose. So they say that it's a cartoon-style face, right?
Yeah.
have sensors to pick out hazards on city streets. In case of an accident, the front is made of a foam-like material and has a flexible windscreen, OK? Google have been working on the driverless car since 2010. First time the prototype has been built for itself, and it is now ready to be used in built-up areas. I mean, that is incredible. That's incredible. More than 1.3 million people are killed on roads worldwide annually, and it's hoping this will eradicate road accidents.
Well, you see, but I don't see how it can do. Well, just before we go, let me read you this out from Gaynor Jackson, the lady who earlier texted and tweeted in.
Oh, yes.
Said that you just love the sound of your own voice. She said, could you just correct Mr. Mike Parry? I've never been a great supporter of his. Again, he is incorrect.
What do you mean?
You must be confusing Gaynor with somebody else.
No, I'm not confusing with anybody. How can she so publicly say she's not a supporter of mine? Most people who listen to me have great affection for me. I just don't understand this. I don't understand this. Can I say one last thing about this car?
Well, hurry up.
All right. What happens if you come out of the pub and you've had 12 pints, and then you've got your car, you program it on your phone to take you home, and you open the door and you get in, you close the door and you sit there and it takes you home. Is that legal?
I don't know, but it's a good question. Presumably the best thing to do would be to program it before you go into the pub, so that when you come out of the pub it's already programmed, because you might get the programming wrong, mightn't you?
Fine.
But I would imagine you're not in charge of the vehicle, are you?
That's what I'm saying.
So presumably because the video that they showed was of an old couple that they were using to drive around, who were all just waving at people out the windows.
Right.
You know, they're not driving the car.
Yeah, so you reckon we can eradicate drink driving as well?
I think you might well be able to do that, yeah.
Well, should people be allowed to get into cars and be taken home by the car if they're intoxicated?
Well, you're allowed to get into a taxi and be taken home by a taxi driver.
Yeah, but the problem is, if anything goes wrong with the car, isn't it you's got to correct it?
I don't know. You raised some very interesting questions here. Very interesting questions. Incredible stuff from Mr. Mike Parry. I've never been so interested in this. We've got loads more to come next on TalkSport. England is the cry. I was saying earlier, Mike, that surely it's time that the old troops were rallied, and not necessarily specifically the troops being rallied, but, you know, Roy Hodgson gets a little bit fired up and all that. Lots and lots of stories on the back pages, but I'm afraid Gaynor is still tweeting in. So I've got to raise this question to you, because she said to me, thank you very much, first of all, for clarifying the situation that she was not necessarily a supporter of yours. Somebody called Scott has tweeted, he says, to her, I think you could be the first Mrs. Parry Gaynor. There's a bit of sexual tension here. She says, more chance of hell freezing over.
Really? You see, that's not very nice, is it? Well, I mean, do you know what? If that had been a man talking about a woman like that, then you would be accused of being a sexist pig. So what do you call a woman who's making disparaging comments about a man like that? What do I call her? I don't
know what you would call her.
I'm not going to call her anything offensive, anything like that.
She's not making disparaging comments about you.
She is. She's saying that hell would freeze over before she could ever even be on the list of the FMP, the first Mrs. Parry. Let me just tell you, Gaynor, there is a queue a mile long of candidates, right, for that FMP slot. So
leads all the way to the old folks' home.
Let me just tell you, my young lady, that, you know, your absence from that list is not necessarily going to wreck my life.
Don't turn on Gaynor.
I'm not turning on Gaynor. I'm sure she's a lovely lady.
You're showing once again. You're showing that nasty side.
Making sexist comments about me. I just can't believe it.
She's just saying she's not really interested in becoming the first Mrs. Parry.
Well, I mean, that's her loss, not mine. And there's plenty of women out there, you know.
You see, you can't take it, can you?
Who would say, Gaynor, that's a missed opportunity in life.
This is what I have to put up with, Gaynor. Don't worry about it. Now, there is somebody on your side, by the way. He doesn't give his name.
Okay.
He texted in earlier on. He says, if everybody in a 10,000-seat football stadium weighed 10 kilograms more, then that's an extra 100 tons in the stand, and there's got to be a breaking point somewhere.
Thank you. I said to you...
You sure you didn't send that one in yourself?
No, I did not. Public structures like football stadia that have several shelves, for want of a better word, you know, tiers. Well, no, tiers that go up and all that kind of stuff, particularly on the continent, where on the continent they built stadiums a long time ago where tens of thousands of people actually stand on second and third tiers, not just sitting down, but standing, you know, or certainly in the old days they did. I reckon they must all be under threat if we're all getting bigger and fatter. I think that, you know, discos where kids go out and dance, if they're all getting bigger and fatter, the floors are going to fall in. I think that lifts are going to be under continued threat of straining. But I'm getting some feedback from the listeners who are brighter than you to say that I've made a very good point.
But that doesn't mean you have to keep repeating it. Now, let's have a look at some of the back pages, because as much as England are playing, an awful lot of the back page headlines are being taken by Ricky Lambert, who seems to be on the way to Liverpool. Now, I said earlier, you may disagree with me on this, but isn't it a bit kind of a bad timing for Liverpool to be trying to do this right at this particular moment, just before the World Cup gets underway?
I don't blame Liverpool for being opportunistic if they think they can get in and get a player they want. However, I'd never dreamed for a moment that Ricky Lambert was a Liverpool player. I thought that...
Andy Carroll, they got rid of because he was that kind of player.
Well, I'm about to say, I thought he was that sort of player. I mean, I take it Ricky Lambert has got more all-round to offer than Andy Carroll, who is perceived as a sort of flying lamppost type player, whereas Ricky Lambert's actually got something about him. He can take free kicks and all that kind of stuff on the ground.
He's quite silky skilled as well.
Yeah, not being disparaging to Andy Carroll, by the way. But what I'm saying is, I thought the Brendan Rodgers revolution now was all about attracting some of Europe's best players to come to Liverpool. Yeah. And with the greatest respect to Ricky Lambert, he is not one of Europe's best players. He's not a stellar player in the European arena.
And he is, whether he likes it or not, generally speaking, a bit of a target man, isn't he?
Yeah, and anyway, providing Sturridge and what's his name?
Sterling, Suarez?
No, Suarez are both available each week. I mean, is this an indication Liverpool fancy they might lose Suarez over the summer?
There was a story in the papers yesterday, wasn't there, that Real Madrid have decided not to go for Suarez now and they're going to go after Aguero instead.
Is that right?
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe they'll come back for Suarez, but the belief was...
but Suarez could go to any club in the world, couldn't he?
Yeah.
Go to Barcelona.
Especially if he has a great World Cup.
Go to Italy,
Italy?
He could go to...
Italy?
Yeah, Italy. He could go to Germany, Alemania. Yeah, that's right, he could.
Good.
But anyway, look, the story that caught my eyes, and I heard about it mid-afternoon, well, it's been buzzing around for a couple of days, is Roy Keane going to Celtic. Now, if you were a Celtic player, you would be holding your head in your hands thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do if Roy Keane arrives here. Because,
Martin O'Neill's confirmed that they've had talks, hasn't he?
I think he's confirmed that he's given permission for them to talk to him. But I find it very bizarre. Very, very bizarre. I mean, Roy Keane had one good season at Sunderland, didn't he? And basically, it was a kind of, you can't go any lower than this, so you can only go up.
And then the wheels kind of came off, didn't they?
Wheels came off after that. But he is a mass disciplinarian.
Did he not go to Ipswich after that?
Was there anybody between Sunderland and Ipswich? He had 3 seasons at Ipswich. Did he go anywhere else in between? I'm not sure. Did he? I can't remember. But anyway, the point of my story is that Roy Keane is a sergeant major type attitude in management. For instance, I remember the famous one at Sunderland was the coach goes at 9 o'clock. If you're not here by 9 o'clock, the coach goes and it goes without you. And
to the game.
To the away game,
right.
And the coach went at 2 minutes past 9. And 2 players turned up at 2 minutes past 9 to find the coach had gone.
Yeah.
So this is absolutely demonic disciplinarian imposition of his will and his standards on the players without any sort of versatility whatsoever. I don't think that works with players these days.
I don't think it does.
It's been proven not to work.
Paolo Di Canio had a terrible time.
Exactly. He had it even worse at Sunderland, didn't he?
But don't you think Roy
players
Keane
didn't eat tomato ketchup.
But don't you think Roy Keane's kind of mellowed slightly since those days?
Well, I don't know if he has or not. If you look at his appearances on ITV television when he's passing opinions on his former teammates at Manchester United, his former club, I don't think he's mellowed at all. I think he's got more strident in his views.
He said they should be ashamed of themselves.
Exactly. And if you get more strident in your views, and then you try and transfer that to a dressing room and to imposition on millionaire footballers. I know that Celtic players aren't necessarily of the wealth of English footballers.
Yeah, but they're still making money.
Of course they are.
Big money.
Of course they are. And the other thing is, any manager who goes to Celtic is actually playing a bit of a game with the profession in which he's in, because he's going to win a title next season. Right. It's obvious he's going to win the Scottish League title.
Don't you think they might have reached a point as well at Celtic where they want a sort of a big name, though? Because they might be in danger. Say, for example, they don't get a guy like Roy Keane this time around.
Well, how big a name is Roy Keane in management?
Well, he's not, but he's a big name in world football in the sense that, everybody knows who he is.
But any board who says, look, I think we'll have this guy as our manager because he was a big name as a player is short-sighted to the point of being incompetent.
All right, let's look at the other options, right? David Moyes' name has been mentioned as a possibility. Yeah. Malky Mackay's name's been mentioned. Yeah. I mean, Roy Keane, you'd have to say, is a bigger football name than either of those guys, not because of what he's done as a manager, but what he did as a player.
So what do you want him for? To attract sort of commercial interest in the club or something like that?
Possibly. I mean, he's got an Irish connection, which is always good because they've got obviously massive Irish investment. They've got a massive Irish fan base.
We've got an Irish owner. He's owned by an Irishman.
Dermot Desmond.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's what I meant. But they've also got loads of other Irish investment coming in. And, Roy Keane is a whether you like him or or not, is a sort of a magnet for people. People would think, wow, Roy Keane's the manager of Celtic.
I don't agree.
If Malky
I think
Mackay
most
got the
players
job,
would say, I'm not
I'm
going
not
to
talking about the
Celtic.
players, I'm talking about everybody else.
The whole idea of having a manager there is he'll attract the right players to make the club play efficiently.
I'm not sure it is anymore. That's my point. I'm saying I think it more is about the likelihood that actually Celtic have realised they're drifting so far away from the Premier League now at this point.
Yeah, the English Premier League.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're really not in a position to do much else apart from make money as a club and go into the Champions League every year. They're not going to attract any top players because who wants to play in the Scottish Premier Division when they've got nobody to play against?
No, it's true. That's
You know what I
absolutely
mean?
true. Next season's going to be another, sort of parade. Celtic will win it with 2/3 of the season gone. And that's what I'm saying. Why would Roy Keane, who's a man who's always reminding us of his massively competitive qualities, go and take a job which is basically a monopolistic situation?
Yeah, well, he might not want to.
I.e., it's an I can't fail job. Now, are we supposed to respect Roy Keane for going into a situation like that or not? I don't know.
It is regardless of what anybody in England says, it is a giant club and it is a big job. But it's a weird job because you don't play anybody interesting and you don't get enough money to buy enough players to do anything in the Champions League. That's what I'm saying. But he's a better name for them to get, I think, than anybody else.
I might remember 3 of the biggest names in the Premier League that Celtic have played against before are now in the league below. Rangers, Hibs and Hearts.
And Hearts. And actually, people have been saying, interestingly enough, that the second division, the second
going to be
tier,
more
is going to be
exciting.
far more exciting than the
because
first.
it'll be competitive.
And also, the other thing that might mean is that Rangers don't actually come up automatically like they were expecting to.
Yeah.
Because actually, they might not be that much better than Hibs and Hearts.
I totally agree.
Scottish football suddenly get interesting again.
Well, I've always said that if you took Rangers and Celtic out of Scottish football, it would do the game in Scotland an awful lot of good. Because, OK, you wouldn't get, travelling. I mean, all this thing about, Celtic have got 40,000 fans and Rangers, 40 or 50,000 fans each capacity. But they can only take a very small percentage of those to away games anyway. So they're not actually passing a lot of wealth on to the other clubs. I suppose the clubs get a percentage of the game when they get to Celtic Park. But, the point is, I think the game would be much healthier, much more competitive. But I just don't understand the Roy Keane thing. If he's always going on that he's in for it for a challenge. He's in it to, take on new situations. But this is so old hat. I mean, he spent a very small period of time as a Celtic player, didn't he, after leaving Manchester United?
Not with any great success.
Exactly. And I just don't get his attitude to this. To me, I'm sorry, but if Roy Keane takes this, let me be as frank as Roy Keane is about his former colleagues at Manchester United, it will be a cop-out on the basis that he's actually swerved a job with proper responsibilities for a job that guarantees him titular and paper-thin success.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Mike Porky Parry will be proselytising on a great many other things. We're going to give him a quiz about Yorkshire, which he claims to be an expert in, coming up in the next hour. Does that remind you of Yorkshire, by any chance?
No, it reminds me of Salisbury Hill, where the kid
Hill?
Yeah, the kid with the Hovis bike was pushing the bike up the hill.
It wasn't Salisbury Hill.
It
Salisbury Hill's in Bath.
Well, it was somewhere around there. Dorchester Hill.
No, it's not. No, it was up in the north of England. The whole point of Hovis was it was in the north of England.
It wasn't.
On a cobbled street.
That was a cobbled street in the south of England.
Yeah, I know it was filmed in the south of England. But
exactly.
It was meant to represent the north of England, wasn't
it? Well, I
it?
think our producers should have played something really associated with Yorkshire, like, for instance, All Creatures Great and Small. The theme music to it, You're
never satisfied, are you?
Because that was all about 2 Yorkshire vets, and that was very Yorkshire. This, to me, is a falsehood. It's a calumny.
Well, it may well be. Gaynor says her latest tweet is this. Mike Parry also lives in a dream world. Ladies queuing up to be the first Mrs. Parry. He doesn't lack self-confidence.
I think her envy is oozing out of that, isn't it?
But then she adds, rather quizzically, this could get interesting.
Oh, could it? Oh, you see, she's playing her bets there. She's she's half a crown each way, as my mother would say.
Half a crown each way.
Now then,
are you sure that's not an insult?
No, of course
right.
not.
Now we're going to give you a Yorkshire quiz.
Well, hang
anyway.
on, just before you do, excuse me.
Right.
There's one that followed Gaynor there, and it says, "Oh, Mike Parry, come on, Gaynor. Hang on, this has just gone off. Wait a minute. Come on, Gaynor. He is a fine figure of a man."
Who's that from? Your mum?
No, some guy calls himself the Hellfire Club for some unknown reason. Rather strange.
That is rather strange. I wouldn't go down that road if I were you.
No, I wouldn't.
Now, before we give you the Yorkshire quiz, because you claim to be an expert in Yorkshire, tell us about a weird story that's been going on in a place called Yarm, which is apparently somehow connected to Teesside.
Yeah.
All of this is all a bit of a mystery to me, because I don't really know where
first
the
of all,
lines stop and the other lines begin.
First of all, it appears I'm to be quizzed on Yorkshire,
Yeah.
which I don't mind, because I am an expert on the geographical makeup of our country, as one should be, because of the Humber Bridge situation, which, is...
Well, we know how you got that one wrong.
I didn't get it wrong.
You said the bridge went to nowhere.
No, it didn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere.
In
But
fact,
it's
it goes
based
to Barton,
in
doesn't
Hull, and Hull is in Yorkshire. But no, the Yarm situation's great. Now, a few years ago, Mr. Brazil and I did a breakfast show from Yarm. I think it's the Tall Trees Hotel. And Yarm is a very smart enclave of Teesside.
Right.
And Teesside is generally maligned by people for being the home of the petrochemical industry in this country.
It's a very industrial part of the world, isn't it?
Well, it's not so much industrial, it's the vapours that come out of the chemical engineering
Well, it's got
plants.
industry there that makes it industrial.
Okay, a bit. But it's not heavy industrial because it's light industrial, because the chemical engineering industry requires very few people to run it. Once you've built your plant, hardly anybody needs to be there to run it.
Well,
you know
I don't
what
think industry necessarily means there's loads of people there. It just means
Well-
there's loads of horrible smells.
Well, there's loads of people in coal mines, aren't there?
Well, there aren't any anymore, no.
And loads of people in
There aren't
shipbuilding
any,
yards.
No, there aren't. Not anymore.
Yeah, but there were when it was heavy industry,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Well, it's not heavy industry anymore,
No.
okay? Right. But when it was, there were loads of people
But
there,
it's
okay?
still,
You
but
got
it's
it?
still, but it's still industry.
There are loads of people in
There's going to be loads of people at Wembley tonight.
There are
That's not
loads
an
of
industry.
people in factories that build cars, because that's
No,
heavy
they're not.
industry,
No,
okay?
there aren't.
Yes,
They're
there
all
are.
done by machine now.
Rubbish. You're talking utter nonsense. Anyway,
We haven't got a lot of time for this. Talk about Yarm.
Yarm had an address that involved the word Teesside. The residents of Yarm. Yarm's a very smart enclave. It's a bit like
Well, you should live there. They're all snobs by the sounds of it.
it's a bit like Manchester and Hale Barnes, if you see what I mean. You know, where the footballers live and all that kind of stuff.
And that's in Cheshire, isn't it?
It's in Cheshire, yeah, not Greater Manchester, and so Yarm is very nice. I've been there. Oh, the Bull's Head, I think Brazil and I used to go and have a drink in and a bit of dinner in the
doesn't
evenings.
surprise me.
When we were working up there. It must have been for an England game at Sunderland or something like that, and or maybe even at Middlesbrough.
You're going to get to the point. I mean, you know.
Point of the story is they want to.
4 in the morning.
They want to get out of Teesside and get into North Yorkshire. Right?
Yes.
Because they think it's it's better for their status to be North Yorkians, if you see what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you haven't really got enough time to elaborate on that, so let's just give you the test.
Okay.
And we've got 5 questions for you on Yorkshire.
Okay, we'll get on with
I
it.
don't know if we've got any. Do we need any accompanying music for this?
Well, all things great and small. All
Well, you
creatures
may not
great and
have that.
small.
All creatures great and small.
Yeah.
We'll have some music coming in a bit
Right,
later.
okay.
Right, question 1. Which British Prime Minister was born in Linthwaite, just west of Huddersfield?
Harold Wilson.
Correct.
Thank you.
Got the first one right.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2. In what year was Yorkshire split into 4 parts?
That was in the boundary changes of 1973.
Don't be so stupid.
That was 1974. I'm going to give you that because
Thank
that's
you.
good enough.
Thank you.
Incredible. 2
Yeah.
out of 2.
Yep.
3. What is the largest animal to be found in Yorkshire?
Largest
This is
animal
my
found in
favourite question of the
Yorkshire. That would be... Is it in a zoo or is it in a field or what?
It's not in a zoo, no.
So it's in a field.
Well, I can't tell you where it is, but it's an animal. It might be in a field.
Well, in that case, it must be...
It's not a pet. Let's put it that way.
must be like a bull. Be a big bull.
It might be like a bull, but it's not a bull.
I'll
I'll give you one more go.
Well, it's a horse then, isn't it? It's a cart horse.
No, it's not a cart
What is
horse.
it?
It's the red deer.
You're a load of rubbish.
You're gonna
How big's a red deer?
Massive.
Yeah, and how many red deers are there in Yorkshire?
Well, more
There's
than
loads of red deers in Scotland.
There are. I've
That's a
seen them.
trick question.
No, it's not. Number 4.
Yeah.
Who captained the Yorkshire cricket team from 1971 to 1976?
71 to 76. I think I was probably Geoffrey Boycott.
Yeah, it was Geoffrey Boycott.
Thank you.
That's 3 out of 4.
Thank you.
This is the best you've ever done on any quiz that
This
we've
is
ever given
brilliant,
you.
see,
Which
brilliant.
Yorkshire actress was made a dame in 1988?
Dame Maggie... No, it wasn't Maggie. Dame... Let me think. Yorkshire actress, by gum. Let me think. Dame... wasn't Diana Rigg.
No, it wasn't.
It was Maggie.
No, you're thinking Maggie Smith. No, I'm
no.
afraid. No, it was Judi Dench.
Dame Judi Dench.
Dame Judi Dench.
M.
Well, why are you saying it like you think you said it?
Because
You didn't say it.
You didn't allow me to answer the question. So
No, you had 3 goes and you didn't get any of them right.
No, I
so
didn't.
I think I was actually rather good to you on that particular quiz. 'Cause
I'm not sure you were.
Yeah, you got 3 out of 5. That's 60%. That is the highest you've ever scored on any quiz you've ever done.
It doesn't surprise me.
I think you should be very, very happy with that.
I'm not surprised about that.
No, I don't think you
I
should
expected a few more questions about Yorkshire, not people who lived there, frankly. You know,
Well, it's a question-
Like,
it's a quiz
you know,
about
like,
Yorkshire.
for instance, you know,
Perhaps you'd like to set your own quiz.
you know, in what year was York Minster built? You
Right,
know,
and
could
what's
have
the
told you
answer
all
to
that.
that?
Sorry.
What's the answer to that?
1147.
Right.
You know, could have told you all the
that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Could have told you all the history of you know, the Yorkshire ports, like Bridlington and all that kind of stuff. But you asked me dopey questions
you didn't know
about
anything
people who were born there.
Well, you didn't know anything about Grimsby the other week, so why would you know anything about the Yorkshire ports? You said that Grimsby had become practically a derelict ex-fishing village, and it turns out is one of the biggest container ports in Western Europe.
It's got a container port. It's not a fishing port anymore.
Yeah, but you more or less said it was a kind of destitute place.
You see, stop trying to scrabble around and get
When
some
was the last time
credibility.
you were in Yorkshire?
Last time I was in Yorkshire. Good question. Where was I last in Yorkshire?
You haven't been there for a football match lately.
Have I been to a football match lately? I went to Scunthorpe, so I had to go through Yorkshire to get to Scunthorpe. Scunthorpe's in Lincolnshire, I think.
It is in Lincolnshire.
I went to York for some reason recently. I'm not sure what it was, but it was, yeah.
Must have been memorable.
Must have been last year.
Must have been.
Or year before.
Well, I mean, that's an astonishing thing. Mike Parry has actually got 3
Thank
out of
you.
5 right,
Thank
which he
you.
thinks obviously is a very good score, which is not a bad score, but it doesn't make you an expert in Yorkshire, because obviously if you'd been an expert in Yorkshire, you would have got 5 out of 5.
Well, if you'd have asked me the right questions, I would have got 5 out of 5. But, you know, you gerrymander these
Now,
questions
here
to
we
make me
can,
try and look like a blithering idiot.
Here we can tell you, Salisbury Matt says the Hovis ad was filmed in Gold Hill, Shaftesbury in
Thank you.
Dorset.
Thank you. I
What do you
said
mean,
that.
Thank you. You said Salisbury Hill.
Yeah, but I'd said it was in the south, and I knew it was in somewhere like Dorset.
No, Salisbury Hill is near Bath. It's just on the eastern outskirts of Bath.
Very
I tell you
clo-
that
it's
because
very close.
Because I went to university there. It's a long walk from Shaftesbury to Bath. Let me tell you. And Peter Gabriel, of course, wrote the famous song about it, climbing up on Salisbury Hill. Yeah,
That's
I
right.
can see the city lights, which is what you can see.
Climbing up on Salisbury Hill.
Yeah, that's fine. You don't have to
I
sing
can
the song.
see the city lights.
It's a triangulation point as well. Do you know that?
It's what?
A triangulation point.
What, you mean like the peak of it is on the maps? That's what you mean, isn't
yeah,
it?
It's used by Ordnance Survey.
Ordnance Survey, knew it. Yeah, Peter Gabriel did something recently that somebody was asking me about, and I didn't know who it was, and they said it was Peter Gabriel.
No, that's an interesting anecdote.
Yeah.
Have you got any more like that?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure it was. What was it?
Unbelievable.
now? Yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
If you think that you haven't lost any brain cells, you've got another thing coming. Mike Porky Parry and myself, Mike Graham, with lots more coming up next. This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. Mike Porky Parry is with me here. We had a little bit of a backward shunt there before we talked to Sandra Lee down in Sydney, Australia,
Yep.
because Sandra's a good friend. We talk to her from time to time. We've got a couple of interesting stories to tell her about this morning. But strangely enough, the last time we spoke to Sandra, they were still, I suppose, in the hunt for this missing Malaysian Airlines flight. And just yesterday, and a couple of days ago, I should say, there's been new developments where they've said basically, you know, they've more or less admitted, well, what we thought we were looking for isn't actually there.
No, they've mapped the surface of the Indian Ocean for 600 square miles, where they believe the plane to be, and it's not there. And what I found really odd about the story was they said what they were doing was they were chasing signals which were actually coming from the recovery machinery, like a torpedo, mini submarine, and one of these scanners that was scanning the. And they said
they were getting these pings back, right?
they said get the pings back, but the pings were actually coming from the equipment that was being used to try and do the search.
Right.
But I can't accept that because the pings were supposed to have worn out after 3 or 4 days when the batteries in the black boxes wore out. So. What pings have they been picking up in the 3 weeks since that happened? I just don't understand.
I don't know. Let's talk to Sandra and find out
Yeah.
whether anything has been revealed in the last sort of 24 hours or so. Sandra, very good morning to you. Welcome.
G'day.
Yeah, hi Sandra, great to hear from you again.
I must admit, you know, when we said we might want to talk to you this week about a couple of stories in Australia, I really didn't expect this one to be it because, you know, it's been going on for such a long time now, and for the families now to learn that this whole kind of search that's been going on for weeks and weeks and weeks has actually been going on in the wrong place must be just the latest in a kind of devastating series of blows for them.
Oh, it is. And can you imagine, the Prime Minister said that they were within kilometres of finding where the black boxes were as a result of those pings that Mike Parry mentioned earlier. And they've got absolutely no idea. It is a pinging mystery, really.
Yeah, it really is. And I noticed now, by the way, that since all the announcements were made by the Prime Minister, it's the Australian Deputy Prime Minister who's now been put up to to say, well, actually, we haven't found anything. So he's taking a walk from this at 100 miles an hour, isn't he?
Yeah, he sure is. And also the chap that was heading the search for it, who was our former Chief of Defence, Angus Houston, I haven't heard a pip out of him, haven't heard a ping out of him.
No pings coming from him, no.
No pings coming from him in the last few days. But it is a mystery, and one of the wives of one of the missing passengers came out last night after she heard the news. She's an Australian, and her husband went down on the plane, and she said this is one of the biggest slaps in the face. They've been holding out against all the odds, and they've been told that these were the best chances. This was our best hope of finding it. And, of course, they've been absolutely let down once again.
Yeah, but, Sandra, you know what will happen now? The conspiracy theorists will come out now and say this plane isn't in the Indian Ocean at all. It was hijacked. It was taken to Afghanistan. It has been landed somewhere remote. This will all start again now because we don't actually have a single shred of evidence of where this plane is.
No, and I agree with you, Mike. Earlier, when they were saying that, we had 4 pings, we had 4 of those satellite handshakes coming from the black box or coming from the aircraft soon after it had gone down. Well, that was now nearly 3 months ago. And if those pings have been coming from even possibly the bar fridge on the ocean shield that has been towing the submarine to look for them, I mean, that's just ludicrous. If there's pinging now and there wasn't pinging for several weeks, what's the story?
Exactly. It doesn't make any sense at all. But perhaps the biggest mystery, Sandra, is that you know as well as I do. You've worked in America like Mike and I did. We all worked there at the same time. And we used to do these stories where if people in California threw a load of rubber ducks into the sea off Santa Monica, they would eventually wash up on the shores of Australia. So if that's the case with a load of floating ducks...
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, I do.
What are you doing throwing ducks off Santa Monica Pier?
These geographers used to do these experiments, and it was all about throwing a message in a bottle into the sea, and it turns up somewhere else.
Well, it's a bit different when you're talking about a massive plane, isn't it?
Well, no, it's not different, because the point I'm trying to make is that debris should have been released from the plane in some form or other when it smashed into the ocean.
Why?
Well, because a huge plane hitting the ocean from that height is like hitting concrete. Therefore, you would have to assume it smashed to pieces, the wings came off, the fuselage burst open, the things that are most floatable are the seats in a plane.
And yet,
Sandra. Would you let Sandra finish? Let Sandra finish.
Well, how about we let you stop
Sandra, I'm right, aren't I, in saying not one single piece of debris has ever been found?
Not a skerrick, nothing. They don't know. They've got not even the faintest idea of where it went down. Everything that they've been told so far, everything that they've been letting on to the public so far, has turned out to be absolutely just bumpkins.
Yeah. And that's the staggering thing.
Zero idea.
That's the staggering thing, really, that they've made such a terrible hash of all of this. But unlike Mike Parry, I don't make assumptions about things I know nothing about. He knows nothing about what happens with a plane.
Neither do you.
All right, hang on.
So it's not an assumption. I'm trying to help with a balanced, reasoned view.
It's going to be time for you to look into the light again in a minute. What I'm suggesting to you, Sandra, is that it's entirely possible, is it not, that the plane actually was going at such a velocity that when it did hit the surface of the ocean, that it just actually kept on going and didn't break up because it went almost like a dart.
You idiot. You think the wings wouldn't have come off?
They might not. The deepest point of this place where they're supposedly looking, 7,883 metres. I'm not going to ask Parry to change that into yards, but it's very, very deep indeed. And isn't it possible that it's just so far down there that they can't find anything?
Well, that's one of the other theories that's been raised, that it did go down in one piece. Nobody, I don't think, really believes that, but as no one has any ideas, so it's impossible to rule it in or rule it out. But it is so deep, and as we know, the submarine that went down, the Bluefin 21, that got to its maximum depth and it couldn't go any further. And so far they haven't got anything else that can go deeper.
Yeah. I must say, if they fired one of these pings at you, Porky, I don't think anything would ever come back from it. But let's just talk about...
What's that got to do with the price of fish? When we're trying to discuss a serious subject like that, you've still got to get some mimicry into it at my expense. Yeah. Sandra, take no notice of him. I'm the one who's doing the analytical, scientific conversation with you. This guy's a clown.
Now, Sandra, let me ask you about the political fallout from this, because, as I said before, the Deputy Prime Minister's now been the guy who has to put all the statements together.
We got it all wrong, actually, yeah.
Because he was so eager, wasn't he, the Prime Minister, to kind of claim this as Australia's kind of great rescue effort, and everything was going to be great because Australia were there first and they'd sent all the boats out and all the planes. Is he suffering from a bit of public relations disorder at this point?
No, only in the media. The media are having a bit of a slight guffaw at him. Politically, I don't think anybody wants to make mileage out of it, because they all know that as soon as you start pointing fingers in a sort of a major calamity and a catastrophe where lives have been lost, it could blow back on them as well. So at the moment, politically speaking, all the politicians are just saying, oh, it's a terrible shame, and our sympathies are with the families once more. But the media are having a bit of a chuckle. And also, we have to remember that when the Prime Minister came out and said that we are within kilometres, they were his words, we are within kilometres of these black boxes, he was at that very point hosting the APEC Asian leaders. Right. So, there was a bit of mileage for him to be making on that stage because they were all around.
But he does look a bit daft now. And I remember talking, both Mike and I speaking to a pilot, I think the first week that it happened. And I said to him, well, surely somebody as kind of grandiose as the Australian Prime Minister would not make these statements unless he was very sure that they were going to find something. It now turns out he wasn't sure at all.
Yeah, absolutely. But we have heard stupid things from Prime Ministers. I still remember one of our former Prime Ministers, who was our most beloved Prime Minister in modern times, saying that by the year 2000, no child will live in poverty.
Well, that's all relative, isn't it?
Well, Bob Geldof said that as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
Well, there's another goose.
Yeah, that means that a child will live in a house that's only got 2 flat-screen televisions, you know what I mean? Because, poverty is so relative. Just on the sea thing, Sandra, because you are a woman of the world, you've been aware of the yacht...
How do you mean that?
Well, I mean that she's, well aware of world affairs, having worked with us and on 2 different continents. What I was going to say was, Andrew, you'll be aware of the yacht, the British yacht that went missing in the Atlantic.
With the 4 sailors on it.
Yeah, with 4 sailors on it. Now, there's no sign of them, there's no sign of that. Don't we have to accept...
No, they found the wreckage of the boat.
They found the wreckage of the boat, but they haven't found the sailors, right? No. That's what I'm saying. Don't we have to accept that when the sea takes you, it takes you forever? It's Davy Jones's locker, and won't the relatives of the poor victims of this terrible aeroplane disaster just have to come to terms with that?
I think they will. I think some of them already have. There have been a few funerals and a few ceremonies to farewell their beloved ones. I think a lot of the people in Asia are still, especially the Chinese, I think they're still very angry that they have been told nothing. So I think they're holding out hope. And I think a lot of people, unless you've been given evidence, you try to keep holding out hope for as long as you possibly can. But I think it's getting dimmer and dimmer as the days go on.
Yeah, but it is going to be one of the world's great aviation mysteries, isn't it? I mean, this is Bermuda Triangle stuff. This is Glenn Miller stuff. You know what I mean? It's simply disappeared.
It's just simply gone. It is. It's really just vanished. It's vanished into thin air.
Let me just ask you one more thing before we let you go, Sandra, because the Australian football team got to Brazil ahead of everybody else. And I was saying yesterday, I don't know whether they know something that nobody else does, because they're acclimatising themselves at least a week before everybody else.
Yeah, but they don't need to. It's very hot in Australia as well.
Well, they might be playing in a part of Brazil that's not so hot. But apparently they got there and immediately decided they were too tired to go training.
Yeah, what a bunch of wimps. Can you believe that? I mean, they've lived in Australia most of their lives, and, you travel from north to south in Australia or east to west from Sydney to Perth, you're going to get jet lag. They should be used to jet lag by now.
You'd have thought so, wouldn't you?
Not a good start, really,
is it?
Yeah,
I just think it's a big girly man.
Blimey.
That's a lot of sexist talk going on.
A lot of sexist talk,
Sandra, we've got to end it there. Thank you very much indeed. Sandra Lee there reporting in to us from Sydney. Astonishing that Australia have gone out so early and then they all went, oh no, we're a bit too tired to go training. Now,
by the way, Mark, I've got to tell you about that yacht in the Atlantic, right, went down the Soldier and Nest. This is a very serious point. I read in some detailed report in the Times or something today, a Telegraph, something like that, that there's going to be a massive investigation into whether all boats should be allowed to sail where they want in the world, because this yacht apparently was torn apart because the keel split and it ripped one half of the boat off.
Yeah.
And the what they're asking now is was that boat ever fit to be given the job
be in that part of the sea?
To sail across the Atlantic in 15-foot high waves? And why isn't there more regulation on where boats of certain class and standards can go?
Yeah, serious point. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, I'll let you know that.
Australia, Porky Parry and myself, Mike Graham, back with more next. Who'd you say this was about?
It was about Mia Farrow's sister.
Who wasn't called Prudence.
Yeah, she was called Prudence, actually, I found out. But she...
well, there would be a bit of a clue in the song title.
Yeah, well, it would be, actually, yeah. But she joined the hippie set there when they all pushed off there. Do you remember the scenes when they... You know, they were all running around in caftans and all that kind of stuff. It was that era.
Summer of Love.
Yeah, and they all started growing moustaches.
Well, like Sgt. Pepper around there.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff, yeah. And what happened was she was one of the first to have problems with all the Maharishi Yogi, and she wouldn't come out of her hut. They all lived in huts. And she got paranoid about something. She wouldn't come out.
Nothing to do with the mind-altering drugs.
Well, I think it might have been something to do with that. But anyway, so Lennon wrote this song about her, and he wrote it, he said, like a nursery rhyme to make it as simple as possible because her mind was so confused.
Why didn't you come out to play?
Yeah, why didn't you come out to play? Hey, Prudence, you know, the sun is up, the sky is blue, it's beautiful, and so are you. And it was a message to her to try and make her feel better. But he said I wrote it like a children's nursery rhyme because she'd actually regressed to the age of 10.
Well, that's what drugs will do. Terrible
Is that right? Yeah.
So I'm led to believe. Have you heard Susie and the Banshees version of that, by the way?
No, yeah, I think I have.
Very good. Much darker. It sounds they've turned it into a kind of almost a sort of a threatening, sort of menacing kind of song.
Yeah, that's right. But any take of a Beatles song is. I mean, everybody tells me, I get by with a little help from my friends. Joe Cocker's version was much better than the Beatles. Rubbish.
I don't like
it. It was slowed down. Yeah. It was pathetic.
I'm not a big fan of Joe Cocker's voice.
No, neither am I. And it was done at some festival, wasn't it? The Isle of Wight Festival or something. So it was full of background noise. Load of absolute baloney. Woodstock. It was at Woodstock. He nicked their Beatles record at Woodstock. Yeah.
Which, of course, is slightly more iconic.
It's the worst version ever. Here, I'll tell you something you didn't know as well. You know...
How do you know I don't know it?
Well, because you won't know it, because only I know these things sometimes. And John Lennon's version of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which is obviously very controversial because everybody thought it was LSD, but it wasn't.
How was it his version of it?
Well, that's what I'm saying, because...
he wrote it.
Yeah, he wrote it, yes, but I'm saying...
It's not his version, then, is it?
There have been other versions of it.
Elton John,
exactly. So what I'm saying is, so Julian, his son, comes home from school, and he got this, this drawing he'd done at school, and his dad said, what's that? He said, it's Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, who actually existed, because very sadly, we read the obituary on the lady a couple of years ago when she died. She was actually real. But when Lennon made the song, he got very upset with George Martin, the producer, according to a version I read, because he didn't want it to sound like it was. He wanted a really slowed down, Lucy in the sky with diamonds. And he didn't want it to be a fast beat record at all, apparently. You know, like Eric Clapton made... two versions of a song. One was a fast one, one's a slow one. Yeah. What's the song I'm talking about?
I don't know.
No, of course you do. Eric Clapton made a song, Layla. And Layla originally was Layla.
You're not going to just sing all these songs.
No, hang on. And then he made a second one on a...
Well, then there's the instrumental bit at the end.
On an acoustic guitar.
He did the unplugged version.
That's the one I'm talking about. Layla.
Which was very good as well.
Stop
it.
No, what I'm saying is that's exactly what Lennon wanted to do with Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Well, so I'd let you know.
Yeah, well, thank you very much indeed. I now feel much the richer. Good. Michael in Hampshire says, Hi, Mike. Can you ask Porky what time he's on stage at the Gosport Working Men's Club? His singing will cause a riot.
Well...
Which I don't think is a compliment.
I think that is a compliment. I'm sure I've been booked at the Gosport Working Men's Club this week, but if I have, I'll put it out on Twitter.
Meanwhile,
and you can all come along and listen.
Meanwhile, your geographical knowledge never ceases to amaze.
Oh, yeah.
Here's one from somebody, Richard, who says, Can you please tell that buffoon that Bridlington is not a port, but a seaside town? Thanks.
Yeah.
And he says, that must be Richard, who's still trying to find the M63. That's our guy from Hull.
Oh, yeah. And you're telling me Bridlington's got no boats, then? Is that what he's trying to say, this smarty pants?
Well, it's not a port, it's a seaside town. You might have a couple of rowing boats.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's a port, then it's actually a commercial port. And what about this from somebody who doesn't give a name? Porky is a muppet. You don't go through Yorkshire to get to Scunthorpe. I suppose it depends which way you go.
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah, I think I went through Yorkshire to get to Scunthorpe because if you go
maybe
north...
your sat-nav was broken.
Lincolnshire, maybe it could be. Could have gone on a circular route. Could have gone on a circular route.
Scunthorpe's south of Yorkshire, isn't it?
Sorry?
Isn't it south of Yorkshire?
Yeah, there's one here. Some guy says, his name's Yo-Yo Pickles, that's a strange one. He says, why don't you emigrate to Yorkshire, fatso? Why should I? Why would I want to emigrate to Yorkshire? I might emigrate to Northumberland.
Yeah, you might well do. Now, let's talk about Rory McIlroy, because you were fascinated by his, not only by his 3 minutes of kind of mea culpa And a man who looked very, very distraught and broken he gave that press conference.
He did.
But, hey presto, just a few days later, he wins the PGA Championship at Wentworth, and he's going rather well at the moment again. And by contrast, Caroline Wozniacki, having a terrible time. She's out of the French Open, looks very miserable.
Yeah.
What do you think we can deduce from this?
Well, I'm not sure what you can deduce, except for the fact that he's taken a grip of himself and said, I remember Howard Kendall once, when he was near the start of his reign as Everton manager, and Everton were having a terrible time. I mean, he inherited an awful team. And he was asked to play in a charity game in North Wales. He was still actually a registered player. He was player manager at Everton to start off with. And he said, give me that shirt, let me get on that pitch. He said, it's like being on an island for 90 minutes. So what he said was, all the problems that surrounding him, trying to make Everton work again, and the terrible situation he found himself in, the stress. He said it all went away once he put a shirt on and started playing again. And it could well be, being a student of psychology, as you know, that is exactly what has happened to Rory McIlroy. He's decided to put the complete focus of his life on the thing he does best, which is playing golf. Yeah. The thing he doesn't do best is relationships, obviously, and so he got out of that.
Well, it must be difficult. I mean, you've maybe had a couple of long-distance relationships. I mean, if you're playing sport in two different sides of the world, she's playing in France, he's playing in America, and, as soon as they finish, and you know what, with time differences, it's really difficult. I mean, even if I'm on holiday in America and I'm trying to talk to people back in England,
that's right.
If you sleep till midday one day, suddenly it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you've missed the working day in England. It's not that easy to keep in touch.
And not only that, but you've got to remember that people have different social habits at different times of the day.
Yeah.
So if I'm speaking to a friend in California when I go home now, so I'd get home about 6 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
And
it's 10 o'clock at night in LA, isn't it?
10 o'clock at night in LA. Somebody's been on the Californian wine all night.
Yeah.
And they're talking one language with one set of thoughts, and I'm talking completely another because I'm quite knackered. Got home, making a bit of breakfast or something, just about to go out and feed the ducks or something like that.
Maybe the answer is to have a bottle of wine when you get home.
Well, no, because then I think you're in real trouble.
Why?
Real trouble. You start drinking wine at 6 o'clock in the morning, mate, you've got a problem.
Well, you don't drink. Got a problem. Well, you haven't got a problem if it's the end of your working day, though.
Well,
I mean, I occasionally will go home and have a bowl of pasta and a glass of wine at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning.
Well, it says everything.
Because when you work, when you work at night.
No wonder you got chubby chops.
Yeah, no, it's not chubby chops.
When you work pasta and wine at 6 in the morning.
When you work, no, but the point is when you work at night, like for example, I could have breakfast before I come into work because that's what I would do if the day was reversed. I mean, instead of coming in at say 10 o'clock at night, I was going to work at 10 o'clock in the morning. And if I was to go home at 7 o'clock at night and have a bowl of pasta and a glass of wine, you wouldn't think that was weird, would you?
No, I wouldn't think that was weird, but it's all about the body clockness.
Clockness?
Yeah, your body clock, has responses to the way life is in dark moments, dark hours.
That's true.
And light hours.
That's true.
So you've got to work that out as well, man.
I mean,
confusing your body, you are.
Yeah, well, I've been doing this for a lot longer, though, than you have, and I think you're only just now discovering how it can actually mess up your entire psyche.
No, it doesn't bother me at all. I'm in charge of my psychic. I can...
Psychic?
Yeah.
You've got a psychic, have you?
Yeah. No. I can completely control the...
You can't control your own words.
No, the satellite navigational systems in my body which are being sent out. I can control and interpret them and respond immediately to them, by the way.
Really? So you've got your own inner tom-tom.
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Well done. This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes. More next.
Crazy, but that's how it goes. Millions of people living as ho-ho-hos.
This is Talk Sport Extra Time, and Mike Porky Parry is here with me. I'm Mike Graham, of course. I don't know whether this is going to become a regular feature, but it's when we look at the world of arts.
Yes.
It's a bit like Sky Arts or one of those programs like the South Bank Show.
Yep.
We're on the South Bank, actually. I mean, you might as well call it the South Bank Show, but you're obviously a man. You remember my father was an artist, of course, and I think you bought one of his paintings, didn't you?
2.
You bought 2 of them?
Bought 2 of his paintings, still got them on the wall.
That's very good of you.
Yeah. And what else can I tell you? The other thing I can tell you is this, that on one occasion I was round at your place, Father was there, and he wanted to take a load of paintings and things to a gallery where he told me that day he was starting an exhibition.
That's right.
And we probably put about 50 or 60 things into my car.
Yeah.
Took about
That's right,
2
I remember
hours.
that, yeah.
Took about 2 hours.
He was having it at Scribes, wasn't he?
No, this was somewhere in North London. It wasn't
Oh,
actually
was it?
Scribes. I've been to a couple of your dad's...
I know. It was that one up in Hampstead, wasn't it?
Anyway,
Round the
yeah.
back of
So we get
Walk
in
or
there,
something.
and then, of course, your father forgot where it was because he didn't know his way round the corner, you know.
Well, he was a navigator in the RAF.
He
He was suffering a little bit at that point.
Well,
I don't think you should be making
tell
fun
you
of him.
something, mate. I
He
bet
could
you-
actually tell his sense of direction from the stars.
Yeah, well, if your father was a navigator in the RAF, I reckon there's a few towns in somewhere like North Sweden which received a dose load of bombs from the.
I can't believe the way you talk about a man who is dearly departed, parental
from
person.
617 Squadron, because the number of times I've been with your father, he didn't know his way around like the next block in New York.
Well, that was because he was suffering from dementia.
Yeah, well, maybe.
He was just the early stages of it,
But
he didn't realise.
Anyway, point of the story is on this particular day, so, mate, can you give us a hand with some of these exhibits? I said, yeah, what is it? I've got a big...
He wasn't from Cornwall, by the way.
He's from
He was
Scotland.
not a pirate
and,
either.
and he said, a big exhibition starting today, a bit late with the exhibits. So we got him in. And I don't know what had gone on, but eventually we found this gallery where he's supposed to be having his exhibition.
Right.
And there's a notice on the door saying it closed down 3 weeks ago. so we had to cart all the exhibits back to home. And,
well, it was
and
very
your
good
father
of you to
just
help him out.
scratching his head, saying,
Where was I then?
I can't remember.
Was I in New York at that point?
I don't know what's been going on here. You may have been, I don't know.
Maybe it wasn't even my father. Maybe it was just
No,
some
it
old
was.
geezer that
No,
you
it
happened to
was.
run into in the street.
No, it was Archie. Couldn't miss
Anyway,
it.
I mean, unfortunately for me, I suppose you might
Mm.
say, he never actually produced anything like a Damien Hirst sculpture, which is worth now £10 million.
Unbelievable. I can't believe it. Do you know what it is? It's a fossil of a mammoth.
Yeah.
Right? Embroidered with gold and attached to it two pure gold set of tusks.
So it's a separate take on his kind of work with animals. He did the shark, didn't he? And he did
It's unbelievable.
He did the cow with all the flies flying around, which was really horrendous in a big glass case.
His latest ambitious creation, a 10,000-year-old woolly mammoth skeleton gilded in 24-carat gold leaf and encased in a giant gold-framed tank, has been sold for £8.9 million. Entitled Gone But Not Forgotten, auctioned at a star-studded event and bought by Leonard Blavatnik, the Ukrainian-born owner of Warner Music and Britain's fourth richest person. I mean...
Well, you'd have to have more money than sense to spend that kind of money on something like that, wouldn't you?
I don't think you can insult Mr. Blavatnik like that, but I have to say that people like Mr. Saatchi, famous for the throat grab, Mr. Saatchi, I'm talking about, Nigel Lawson and all
Morris.
that. These guys have so inflated the art market, apparently, by paying outrageous sums of money for things that other people don't believe is art. For instance, the Tracy Emin unmade bed is going for auction in the next 24 hours and is expected to raise £1.2 million. It's literally an unmade bed.
Now, where would you put something like that?
But how do you transport an unmade bed with all sorts of
that's a very
dirty
good question.
clothes on the floor around it? How do you transport that and keep it exactly as it is where it was first made by Tracy Emin? I mean, how do you do it?
I mean, if you're having to move it as well, to put it, say, at auction, you're going to have to put it somewhere else, move it from wherever it was.
Yeah.
What if you move something? I mean, I'm sure Tracy Emin would say, well, it doesn't matter because it's an unmade bed, so you can have anything anywhere you want.
Well, yeah, but surely the whole idea is that if it's worth anything, it's the visual impact of first seeing it.
Yeah.
And she's positioned, a pair of dirty trousers there and somebody's, discarded socks there and the unmade bed has got, an empty chocolate box on it or something. I just don't get it. I mean, I really don't get it. Call me a Philistine if you will.
You're a Philistine.
But in my view, art is the paintings of John Constable.
Right.
I'm ignoring that.
Sorry.
I'm just going to ignore it. The art of John Constable.
That's a good way to do the show.
In Denham Vale, right? Denham Vale, beautiful, very close to
Who
Mr.
would you say is your
Alan
favourite
Brazil's
artist then?
Excuse me, Constable.
Yeah?
Or Turner.
Right.
Turner
There's
did
a
a lot.
movie coming out about Turner, isn't there?
Yeah, Turner did a lot of sort of battle
Seascapes.
scenes. Yes, that's right. Yeah,
Seascapes,
Yeah,
they
like
call them.
Napoleonic ships and all that kind of stuff. Well, not Napoleon, Nelsonian ships, and that kind of stuff. John Constable, though, I mean, the Haywain. And what was the other one? The Haywain and...
I don't know.
Was it something Lock? Pickett's Lock, was it? Something like that?
Could be.
Anyway, these are beautiful paintings. And
Do you ever go to the art galleries then?
Yeah, of course I do. And I go and look at John Constable's paintings all the time.
Where can they be found?
Well, they can be found in, they move around in exhibitions. They move around in exhibitions.
You don't know, do you?
They do, I do.
Well, they'd be in the National Portrait Gallery, perhaps?
Yeah, perhaps. And I've seen them down in exhibitions in Suffolk, where
Royal
I've got a home.
Academy
I've got
of
a
Art,
home.
maybe?
I've got a home down
In
there
Suffolk?
in Orwell Quay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
what sort of gallery have they got there then?
Well, they have
A museum.
They have portable ones because Constable painted in, Dedham Vale and places
Portable
like that.
museums of art.
Yeah. They take them down there, and when they bring a few constables over, I always go over and have a look at them because they are so beautiful.
We're not those kind of constables.
Fabulous. I mean, I can't see anything in all the modernist stuff. Even Picasso, I thought was just hopeless. To be honest, I could have
Hopeless.
I could have done a Picasso.
Really?
Any of us could have done in this modernist type
Some
thing.
Picasso. Have you ever seen Guernica?
No,
That was
I
his
don't know.
depiction of the Spanish Civil War, which is a massive,
I don't
very,
know
very
what it
long. It's a little bit like the Bayeux Tapestry in the sense that it's a very, very long painting, and it's occasionally travels around the world. I actually saw it when he was on tour in New York once.
Is it a proper painting though? Or is it an abstract?
Yeah, well, no, it's a painting. But,
Okay.
I mean, the figures are not necessarily as you might draw them because they're in his kind of
I love
cubist
the
period.
I love the Yorkshire artist because of his massively vivid colours. Bright greens, bright reds, and all that. You know what I'm talking about, don't
No.
you? Yes, you do. Come on.
You're not talking about Lowry, are you?
No, he's our most famous living artist. No, T.S.
Hockney.
Lowry, I love his. David Hockney.
David Hockney.
Hockney.
Yeah, well, funnily enough,
Beautiful painting.
There's a very
Beautiful.
interesting link to David Hockney and what we're about to talk about.
Oh,
Now,
right.
I'm not sure if you'll know what it is.
Right.
But it's the 50th anniversary, I should say, of the great battles between the mods and the rockers that used to take place back in the 60s. And funnily enough, I remember way back when, before, as they were starting to build the bottom of the M1. The North Circular Road was one of the big roads, and there was a place called the
Are you that old? You can remember them building the bottom of the M1?
Well, I can remember going on
My
the
God.
the M1. I can remember
M1, yeah.
I can remember them building it because I remember they used to race Bristols up and down it.
Right.
Because there was effectively no speed limit.
That's right,
because
yeah.
really there weren't that many people with cars that could drive on it. But there was a cafe at the bottom, at the foot of the M1 where it met the North Circular called the Ace Cafe.
Yeah.
And I always remember as a child just being kind of fascinated because we'd drive past this place and there was literally on bank holidays hundreds and sometimes maybe even thousands of motorbikes.
Yeah.
And it was the rockers who used to meet up there before they headed off down to Brighton to get involved in a big punch-up on the beach.
Well, yeah, now, you said there's a documentary coming up later this week, and I remember as a kid, grainy black and white pictures on the telly of seeing all these people running wild on the beach at Brighton.
Yeah.
And, of course, I'd never been further south than...
And sort of kicking each other and punching each other. And you thought, what are they doing?
I'd never been further south than Shrewsbury in those days. I was brought up in Chester on the North Wales border, the English North Wales border. And I saw all these people and I thought, this magical world where, I wanted to go. And then I saw all these guys driving around on the... Because if I'd have been a mod or a rocker, if I'd been old enough to
What
join...
would you have been then?
Oh, I'd have been a mod.
Yeah.
I'd have been a scooter boy.
Why?
Well, because I thought they looked great in their parkers and sitting on them scooters, all those mirrors on the front and all that, driving round, What was the name of the film they made about it?
Quadrophenia.
Quadrophenia.
Well, that was the
with
link
Phil,
to
what's
David.
his name?
That was the film to Hockney because Hockney actually was part of one of the design of a Who album cover, and the Who, of course, were the band that everybody wanted to see if they were mods, and so that pretty much qualifies you from being a mod. Because
So
if you didn't know the film the film was made after an album by the Who called Quadrophenia.
Well, there you go. You see, and
but you could never have been a mod if you didn't know that.
Well, I wasn't, I'm too old to be a mod now. I would have been in those days. Now, you'd have been a rocker, wouldn't you? Because you got long, greasy hair.
No, I wouldn't, because I was always a Who fan, so I probably would have been.
No, you got long, greasy
I have
hair.
not got long, greasy hair at all.
You're
In fact, I got it cut the other day. You didn't even notice.
You're a big, bulky fella, and you would have looked better on a motorbike made of real steel than a poor little
Then a hairdryer. They used
scooter.
to call them those Lambrettas. They used to call them hairdryers.
Used to call them sewing machines because of the yeah. Used to go on they used to work on two-stroke, so you had to put a bit of petrol and then a bit of this oil and mix it all up apparently, and that's how they worked.
I wouldn't
Very
know.
odd.
Now, coming up next week, I want to give you a little heads up on this because we're going to get somebody to talk to about this. Science has always fascinated you and me, right? So it turns out, when you see things like Star Trek and they beam people up from one part of the planet back up.
Beam
to
me
the
up,
spaceship.
Scotty.
Beam me up, Scotty. Well, they've actually started work on doing something similar. Now, you know about the Large Hadron Collider, don't you, over in Switzerland?
Yeah, of course I do, yeah.
In CERN. And they've been trying to find out exactly whether there is this thing called God's particle, whether or not they can recreate the Big Bang. They keep trying to recreate it and not really get anywhere. And they keep saying they think they found it, but they haven't really. But these two professors who are in Delphi University in Holland, right? Professor Ronald Hansen is one of them. They've actually managed to find a way of teleporting data. Now, it's not quite the same as teleporting an object, but they've actually been able to move data.
What is
physically.
teleporting? What's teleporting mean?
Teleporting means literally move. I mean, it would, if in layman's terms, it would be like taking this mouse that I'm looking at here, which, for the purposes of people who can't see, is not an actual real mouse; it's a computer mouse.
Yeah, obviously.
And actually putting it in and breaking the matter down, somehow recreating it somewhere else. So that basically, if I wanted to move this mouse from here to the inside of your car, then we would put it into some kind of device. We would melt it down and make it disappear, and it would reappear somewhere else, like in your car.
But can you do that to the human body?
Well, that's not advisable. Have you seen The Fly?
No.
That's The Fly is a movie with Jeff Goldblum in it. There's actually an earlier version of it as well. He's a scientist who discovers a way of teleporting himself, and he starts the experiment by moving himself from one side of the laboratory to the other.
Right.
And he's got these two big glass cases, and he goes into the glass case, programs it, and he reappears the other side.
Right.
Now, he tries it, first of all, I think, with his dog or his cat.
Right.
And then it works, right?
Right.
So he thinks, well, now I can do it for myself, and this is the only way I can really find fame and fortune if I can do it to a human. What he doesn't know is that a fly also gets into the the cubicle that he's in.
Why are you smashing up your microphone?
Well, I just brushed it there.
Right, go on, yeah.
And when he comes out the other side, unfortunately, he and the fly have transposed their DNA, and so his head starts to grow like a fly's head. And his hands.
How ghastly is that?
It's a great film.
So he turns into a fly.
Well, he turns into like half man, half fly.
Ugh, God, you know what I'd do? I'd fly off somewhere and kill myself. No, I would. Seriously, I would.
Imagine, you would fly off somewhere and kill yourself.
Oh, imagine being part fly.
You could swat yourself, actually. Because while you're still partly half mad, you could just hit yourself with a swatter.
Do you know what I'd do? I'd go and find the M1 and I'd drive into a windscreen. I would, because that'd be the quickest way of dying if you were a fly. I can tell you something about this. When I was a student, I was in digs with a chap who...
You could say a fly.
No, not a fly, no. With a chap, and I wonder what his name was.
I wonder what his name was as well.
I think his
name... Do you think you could go through any period of a 3-hour show remembering anybody's name? Anyway, remember your own name?
Point is, this boy was a brilliant physicist. He'd been to Cambridge University, and he got a degree in molecular physics or something like that.
What was he doing in digs with you then?
Well, because he'd come to Nottingham to do post-grad work at Nottingham University, you see.
Okay.
And
or the University of the Trent, as
it's
known.
University of the Trent, actually. But anyway, the point of the story is, and he came from...
What is the point of the story?
Well, he came from Wisbech in Cambridgeshire, and his father was a double digger.
A what?
That used to amuse me. I said, what does your dad do?
Double digger?
My dad's a double digger. And I said, oh, yeah, and what does that entail? He said, well, you go out and you dig trenches in fields, and when you've dug them, you dig them again. That's why you're a double digger. I said, oh, OK.
Anyway, so Somerset, apparently.
No, I never got to the bottom of it. Anyway, point of the story is...
What is the point of the story?
He said...
a minute left.
He told me that if I sat in this studio now and got a tennis ball and kept throwing it at the wall behind you again and again and again...
Eventually I'd punch you.
No. Eventually it would go through the wall because the molecular breakdown of the tennis ball would actually match... On one rare occasion, once in a 10 million chance, the molecular composition of the wall...
Where is he now, this genius?
And the ball would go straight through the wall. No, but you'd have to spend a long time doing it to get that 1 in 10 million chance. It is true. It's true. The molecular composition of the ball would meet the molecular composition of the wall, and the ball would go through the wall and appear on the other side. He told me this, and he was a molecular scientist from Cambridge University.
I'm sure he was.
So I know these things.
You know an awful lot of molecular science.
I know these things.
Sounds like a load of old balderdash to me. But thank you very much indeed. Mr. Mike Porky Parry will return with me on the Two Mics next Monday night.
I'm Mickey Quinn, and that was the Two Mics on TalkSport.